There we go. All right, it is 7:03 and I call the meeting to order. Let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which it stands,
nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. Is there a second? Second. I saw Commissioner Lawrence's hand go up. All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. All right, motion passes. Public comment. Do we have anybody from the public? I can't see anything. Do we have anybody from the attendees? Okay. Then we will move on to the union report. Looks like we have Mr. Zach Cash to give that to us. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to get started with a couple invitations for the Board of Commissioners. It's starting to get very cold outside. I'm sure as you're all aware, I just had to put my knit hat on, my department hat for the first time of the season. So this is, I think, the first week we're going to have sub-freezing temperatures, and we are doing another Coats for Kids. And so we wanted to invite commissioners out, whoever might be available. Sorry, it's a bit of short notice. It will be tomorrow, the 9th at 9 a.m. We're meeting at Station 11 across from HQ, and we'll be delivering coats to the Edmonds School District to distribute to kids and families and community members in need. And from what I understand, Chief Hovis is actually one of our contacts who helped us make this connection. So thank you to him. And then these donations are made possible through donations from KISW, so the radio station locally, and then also the South County Firefighter Foundation, along with the State Council of Firefighters. So big thanks to all of them. If you are interested, go ahead and contact either me or Micah Gaston. There should be an email with some info about how you can do that. The second invitation is to Burn Camp, and that's happening on Thursday from 11:45 to 3 p.m. I'm still going to get the rest of the information, so I don't have it in hand right now, but it's contact Melissa Beard, and her contact info should have been sent over to Mrs. Blankenship. That being said, I just want to, oh, sorry, go ahead. No questions. Okay, sorry. That being said, I just want to highlight the great work of the South County Firefighter Foundation real quick. It's our locals 501c3 charitable foundation, and they to date have given over $23,000 in donations and gifts, charitable gifts. That's how we fund the Coats for Kids. That's how we fund part of our Burn Foundation through the State Council. We also fund taxi vouchers and rides for people to get back from the hospital who we've transported who might not have any other means to do so. We do scholarships, all kinds of things. We're getting into the charitable season, and so through the next couple of months, we'll probably give another $10,000 or more out in charitable gifts to those causes and people in need. So I just want to highlight what we're doing through our charitable foundation. I saw that deployment was on the agenda. President Hoover requested that I just highlight that the local supports the deployment changes that have been proposed by our admin staff. There's been a lot of work that has gone into making those changes, to vetting them, and our local supports the admin and the work that's gone into that. So thank you to everyone who's been involved with that. Obviously, today is election day. We've encouraged our members to get out and vote. And that being said, it kind of brings me to one of my last points in legislative session priorities. So I've had a chat with Ms. Blankenship about what priorities the board might have that we could work on together as our local and our board and our admin staff to try to get some things through the legislature that are important. So I just wanted to kind of open that discussion to see what the board might have ideas wise. I know that there's been talk about tax exemptions for fire engines in the past. And obviously we know that hospital wait times are extremely long right now. So we want to see if we can come up with some kind of solution there as well. I just want to make sure that we are working collaboratively, both through the local and our commission and our admin. I know that's we just want to get things done basically and have a positive impact in our communities. So finally, I just wanted to thank all the veterans, both in our local and throughout our communities. Their sacrifices and those of their families are incredible. They should be recognized, and I'm grateful for personally for those sacrifices that they've made. So we're looking forward to Veterans Day this Friday, to honoring those who have given themselves in service, both their lives and their service. And we're just looking forward to sharing in our communities, both with the Veterans Day things going on in Linwood, and then with the invitation that we got to hang out in Mill Creek and participate as well. So that all being said, that is my report this evening. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Commissioner, any questions? Commissioner Chan, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I think one more comment. I really appreciate what you guys doing. That really give in touch with the community. That's really not just for you. It's basically for the whole organization. I definitely will. But tomorrow is too short a notice. Maybe on Thursday, I'd like to join the Burn Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Zach, for your input, your report. On to unfinished business. Board deliberations on Chief's preliminary budget with the CFO Bothwell and Chief Ovis.
Start. Good evening, commissioners. Some of you may recall we started talking about the budget back in late spring. So we're getting near the end. It's been a long road. Between June and September, we were working on development of the Chief's preliminary budget. On October 4th, the Chief unveiled his preliminary budget, and the board has deliberated on that budget since, including tonight. That's 5 meetings where the board has discussed the Chief's preliminary budget. The focus of tonight is your budget deliberations, so the deliberations continue. If the board would like to see any changes to the Chief's proposed budget, then ideally those would be communicated to staff tonight so that we can go back and make adjustments to the budget package that we're going to bring back to you next week. And we have a number of staff members here that are here to answer any questions that you have about the budget. And there were no questions from last week that required follow-up, so that's your introduction.
Chief, you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, commissioners, just looking for guidance as we get towards the end of our budget process here, so we have clear guidance to bring back a complete budget for proposal at our next meeting next Tuesday. So we timeline that the board approved.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, actually, I don't know how to handle this. I have a list of the questions, and I think somehow there's something I suggest before it wasn't changed. So I guess do one go item by item.
How long is your list?
Well, there's a few lists. It's not that long list, but this is exactly what we need it for, right? It's not the length, but is to me the important issue we need to discuss. All right. Shall I start?
Would it be possible for you? Can you email those questions to the CFO and the chief, and then circle back to those at the next meeting?
No. Well, I wanted to make sure other people are supporting it. I mean, I have mentioned this a couple of times already. I'm okay. If I can start, because otherwise, yeah, I give it to him, but I did give it to him, but he's not going to change it until we got a majority in here to support it. So, right? I love to be the the head of a commissioner budget committee, and yeah, give it to him. All right, let me just first start with one. Number one, I think we have discussed that before. On page 7, if you guys look at the page 7, which is talking about, actually, we want an additional, in the middle of saying, it says the utilize the $2 million property tax bank capacity and leave 6 million bank capacity in future years. I think we have just said, I think Commissioner Jeff, I can support that too. Basically, I want $2 more million to use our capacity and put those money in the capital facility plan. The total difference is only about $30 to all the taxpayers. So I hope we can do it, because if you go back and look at the capital facility plan, we actually reducing, because there's a lot of amount need to be done. And I think the administration agree. One important thing is in Station 76 need some, we don't have the number yet, but that need to be done right away. And on top of that, I'm not sure, we supposed to have raising bond to cover the other items, right? But the thing is that with now interest rate just gone up another 0.75%, 1%, I'm not sure the environment to raise fund is immediately. We might have to wait a few years before you really get to that. So on the safe side, I would like to take up another $2 million, total $4 million, kind of equivalent about the 6% that some other commissioner want to. So I want to, okay, do I want to make a motion then? Why don't I make a motion to to increase another $2 million, so a total of $4 million in our banking capacity, and contribute this money into our capital facility plan.
Can we give CFO Bothwell the floor to respond to your request?
So, I'll just go. The
Go ahead.
$2 million that Commissioner Chan's referencing in the chief's preliminary budget, that's $2 million of bank capacity that was used to balance the chief's proposal.
Right.
I think what Commissioner Chan's referring to is an analysis that was provided in last week's packet to take an extra $1.85 million. And the analysis was provided two ways: have a one-time infusion into the reserves in 2023, or to have an ongoing infusion into the reserves for that amount. And so I think what Commissioner Chan's suggesting is that he'd like the group to weigh in on whether or not to take the additional $1.85 million, or we could round it up to $2 million, but it's not represented in the chief's preliminary budget book. And I think that's what the first reference is.
It's $2 million out of that $6 million, right? So that we would take, in the big picture, in the grand scheme, we'd take 4 and leave 4 on the table. Is that right?
Yes.
And you're looking for this to be an ongoing thing, not a one-time infusion, correct?
Well, yes, at one time today, and next year we might do something different. Yes, it's one time. I mean, this only came one time. I wish we had more money to take it. Yes. Again, we're not spending it. We just put it into the reserve.
Right, no, I get that. I'm just trying to understand how you would only take the bank capacity one time instead of continuously.
The bank capacity will be ongoing, but what we do with it
Yeah.
will be decided every year.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense to me, the way you explained that to me, Bothwell. Thank you. That's why I tilted my head, like I'm not following, like how is it that you'd only take it one time and then return it the next years? All right,
No.
So Commissioner Teoflack, do you want to second his motion and we can continue the discussion?
Yeah, I wanted to, well, just give my support that taking the additional 1.85 million that we discussed in the previous meeting or previous meetings, to add that to the budget and to put that into the what I call the capital facilities plan, but it might be the buildings and maintenance fund.
You're
Thank you.
for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Geofac, for the support.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. So let's go ahead and continue our discussion.
So,
Commissioner Lawrence?
Chief Financial Officer, can you come against this? Can you tear it down? Think it's a good idea?
So it depends on how you feel about the reserves. So if we're not funding the reserves at the level we have in the past. So in 2022, we were funding about $4 million into that reserve. And then the chief's preliminary budget proposal has only $500,000 going in there. So if you wanted to get back to where we were, or closer to where we were, what the motion that's been described would get us closer. We'd be about 60% of where
Let
we
me
were.
rephrase my question. Yes or no? You lost me with the first 3 words.
It's going to increase the property tax levy for the RFA, but it's going to provide additional money for future infrastructure needs. We don't need it for operations this year, but
I mean, are you gonna have sleepless nights if we approve this, or is this a decent, okay idea? And
It's
we'll
a
make
decent,
Mr.
okay
Chan
idea.
happy, and
It's a
we won't
decent,
have to
okay idea,
talk
yes.
the rest of the night.
it's a decent.
All right. That's your last question, David? We'll all.
No, I got a couple more things, but I just want to, I got to do one thing at one time. Otherwise, everybody got confused.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor, Commissioner Kenny.
Thank you. I'm opposed to taking extra bank capacity in our current environment where we're on the edge, the precipice, a cliff of a recession. We're already taking taxes from, a lot of taxes from the taxpayers. This would be taking taxes, and for what purpose? To add to a pile of money. If you look at page 26 out of 80 in the packet, which Commissioner Teoflack mentioned was the Capital Facilities Plan Fund. It's called the Major Facilities Maintenance Reserve. And it's currently planned for 2023 to have $25 million. I would say that's a great big pile of cash. We're gonna increase taxes on the taxpayers because they're facing a recession. As, I don't know about you, but when I go to the store, meat, gasoline, eggs, they're all higher, a lot higher. I believe consumer prices for food are up 13% year over year. There's a significant impact I'm feeling. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling it. I think our taxpayers are feeling it. And so I don't understand why we would raise taxes for the purpose of throwing on top of a pile $25 million. Yeah, you might say, well, that 25 million, if it goes to 27 million, it's gonna fund our whole capital facilities plan. And we're all set, we don't need to do a bond. That's not true. The last time I looked at this, we were $219 million of need. It's gone up since then. Probably gonna go up even more with inflation. There's no way we're gonna cover it with any use of bank capacity here. And so we're gonna have to go to a bond, a voted on bond, in my opinion, at some point, to actually fund that huge amount of money. So we just need to wait until then. In the meantime, we've got $25 million. You're gonna put another $2 million on top of that, and you're taking it out of the taxpayers' pockets and doing absolutely nothing with it, but putting it on a pile of money. So that doesn't make any sense to me, as our constituents are facing a recession, and I'm facing a recession too. So I don't support this. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Does this proposal increase taxes?
Yes.
Against it?
One, I was curious about, so with the new Station 22, what are we looking at putting out for that after the land acquisition? What we're looking at for building?
12.5.
So collectively, so we picked it up to 3.1 plus 12.5, it's gonna be almost 16 total. And that's likely gonna come out of that 25 million. And then, we have retrofitting to do for earthquake for stations as well, right? What is that price tag looking like?
I'd have to go back and look at that number. I don't have that off the top of my head, Commissioner Daniels. I know.
Best guess.
Let's see.
It's the number that Commissioner Kenny referenced, which was the capital facilities plan in its totality.
Right.
Um,
But those are some things that we can nickel and dime away from the capital facilities plan. Potentially, is where I was going with the breakdown of some of these monies, because I agree, on the surface, it looks like we're just adding money, but we do have large projects coming up that we need to fund.
Yeah, if I could, it's okay, Commissioner, if I could just speak to this, because on page 11 of the packet, or as Commissioner Chan referenced, page 7 of the budget, the reason why I didn't propose that or anything for Station 76 is we haven't taken occupancy of it. We don't know exactly what the condition of the structure is. Surfer had started a capital facilities plan with Price Fergus Miller, and they turned to a different consultant to get what they're looking at for their capital facilities plan. They didn't own the station at that time, neither did the city of Little Creek, and neither did we. So we haven't had the ability to have our consultants come in and look at that structure to see what its needs would be in comparison to our other stations. We have done that for all of our RFA partner cities and unincorporated areas and our contract partner cities, but we haven't done that for Station 76, which is why it wasn't proposed as an add or anything in the budget itself, or to add any extra money for Station 76. I do have a copy of the draft of the original for all of the stations at Snohomish Regional, but it doesn't really give us any guidance because it's just a summary overview. So I'm sure Fire Station 76, it's been around for nearly 2 decades. Like a station that was built at that time, a similar use is going to need some needs, have some needs that have to be addressed. Whether those are seismic and or remodel, or eventually a tear down and construct, like we talked about the capital facilities plan, that will definitely be determined. We have told our consultants to start looking at that, but we're not there yet because we're not in the building. Appreciate the conversation that's happened thus far. I just wanted to add some of that content on why it wasn't in the proposal at this point.
Maybe if I can talk about timing, okay? If you look at page 22, we basically 2022 we have $26.5 million. We're adding another city, and our 2023 budget has gone down. Does that make any sense to you or to anyone? If we decided we're not gonna, I think now, today, take that increase. I mean, again, I don't think how that affect our levy rate, but if we do not take the money now, I don't know, have you guys watching CNBC or whatever, Wall Street Journal? The recession is coming and there's a storm coming. It is much better to do it today versus 2 years from now. At that time, the recession, unemployment and everything else, interest rate going high. So if we don't take it, it's just much harder to do it now. And then unless we decided, we just let all the facility go bad, whatever, and not things again. I don't think it's the intention. And to me, for the safety of our firefighter and everybody else, this is the money we're gonna use it. Now, I'll be so happy if we don't need to use it and we just, keep it there. We just don't put any more money in the capital facility plan. And why should we tie our hands on something? So I hope that's what we're facing. Unless we all agree, we're gonna repair anything, then I will be fine. Then we don't need to put money in there.
Commissioner Farnoff.
Yeah, Commissioner Chan, I just want to make sure that we understand what you're saying here is your effort in saying that to capture this money and repurpose it over here. And going back to what Commissioner Kenny said, which is important, point is this results in a raise in tax, if I understand the argument correctly. Do you understand the same thing, that the tax would actually impact our constituents?
Right, but
Is that
sooner or
your-
later, I mean,
But-
sooner or later, yeah,
Your understanding here, okay.
Yeah.
Good. And then what you're saying is that if we act now, may have maybe cheaper money versus money that we would then be dealing with later. Is that the correct argument?
yes, that's part of the argument.
Okay. Is there any missing piece that we don't have so far? Is there anything missing in that conversation that we don't have so far?
No, but also too, we are not talking about spending the money. I mean, I'm a little different from say, well, we should not just tax the money to save it. No, I think that's exactly what we need to do. And there's an additional thing. I do not think our reserve is strong enough. Light rail is coming. I bet you whatever we anticipate is going to cost us more to serve our people. We got to respond. One of the major things we need to do is respond time. Okay, that is if our response time, we don't have money to hire more people or do whatever, not increase efficiency, it doesn't really matter. Now, do you want respond time to go to 10 minutes, 12 minutes, which a lot of other fire districts can do it in an urban area. And at that time, we don't have the money, we cannot spend. We have lived through 2008. It was terrible, terrible, because we did not have enough reserve. And now let's learn the lessons and put the money in there.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now redirect my question to Mr. Bothwell too. Does this argument look in your mind's eye to be reasonable, that it would actually save us money in the long run to reposition these funds? Or is this something that is maybe a crystal ball moment that we don't really understand what's coming down the pipe?
I think it's the latter. I think
Okay.
we don't know.
All right.
I think that Commissioner Kenny's point, I think is well made, that this is money that we don't have an immediate plan for it.
Mhm.
So it is gonna just go into reserves for this budget cycle, it looks like, unless something happens.
Right.
So it's really difficult to know.
And then Commissioner Chan's point is it might save us money in the long run, because if we take it now, I guess the value of the dollar is stronger now, or something akin to that.
I mean, we can invest it and try to keep up with inflation.
Commissioner Kenny, what do you think of that?
Well, I think our taxpayers' dollars are better in their pockets than ours. At the end of the day, if we're putting money on that big pile, I have a visual of that pile in my mind. We'll add it on top. We're gonna try and make some money off that? Are we in the investment business with our taxpayers' money? I mean, I'm just concerned that we are, I understand the point of having that for these needs. My point is, our needs are so vast, it's not gonna cover it. It's 10% of what we need. The reality is, when the time comes to actually do this, we're gonna go to a voted on bond. And so there's no sense in taking money out of our taxpayers' pockets so we can try and make some interest off of it. No, we're the government. We're funded by the people. Why don't we give the people, let the people keep the money in their pocket? You know, if this was some other times, if, the economy was roaring and inflation was low and times were good, maybe the argument would be slightly different. But, tell me if I'm wrong, but we're on the precipice of trouble, and our constituents are not doing great with costs out there. I say the money's better in their pockets than ours.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, we have, well, if it's anything like me and I got money in my pocket, I'm gonna spend it, so. I'm afraid that we, as an organization, might feel like, well, I've got the money, then we can spend it. But we don't have the money to spend so readily. So I agree with Commissioner Kenny, it's tough times are coming and we need to set the example for tightening our belt.
Chief, Commissioner Chan brought up light rail and it's coming, and we all know that it's coming, and we have training to do towards that. Does your budget include training for that?
It does, and the anticipated October of 2024 is ST2 in the center of Linwood, assuming they can catch back up to construction schedules that were impacted by supply chain and some of the strikes that happened previously. But as we move, this budget is for 2023. You'll see additional items in the proposed 2024 budget in 2023. So when ST2 comes to Linwood on schedule, we'll be ready to go. We will most likely have some other asks in that budget for future commission consideration, which would include not just stations that we've talked about thus far, but also potentially the people and or apparatuses to address some of the issues that Commissioner Chan had mentioned, the vertical growth, the infill growth, the increased traffic when Sound Transit 2 actually starts taking people between here and Seattle and beyond.
You just spoke of vertical growth. 2 weeks ago, I went and visited the budget for Shoreline and North Shore Fire Commissioner. Did a joint meeting, and it was in that meeting, before the meeting started, I was chatting with one of the commissioners, and I learned that Shoreline is looking for an additional 30,000 people over the next 6 to 8 years. And that tiny little spot of land that they're on. What are we looking at for growth for the next 5 to 10 years that you've heard?
Off the top of my head, that's very hard to answer. We've had that presentation before, capital facilities plan, and work with Merck on the cost of service study, but it's a very large increase within our area. That would take our county, we're at 930,000 approximately right now in our county. In our RFA, we're about a third. They were talking about growth 50, 80, 100,000 people when everything happens. And that was Sound Transit to get to Linwood. Remember, commissioners, it's going to come up to this area too, and never in the future. So if you're looking for the most accurate predictions, it would most likely be at the last Sound Transit Board or at the county, the Snohomish County.
Okay. No, I was just wondering because, in a perfect world, we'd have a simple straight line, linear growth, and I just want to make sure that the budget is on par with that growth, so we don't get pinched.
The considerations given and the taxes approved by the people or the legislatures in the past to have ST1, ST2, ST and beyond don't necessarily correlate with the impacts to the communities that those lines run through,
Right.
or where they terminate.
Right. I was just looking at just population growth and making sure that we can continue to adequately serve outside of the ST Sound Transit. So
I think we continue to be a challenge as governmental agencies, including ours, have limitations on how much they can collect year over year. But the advantage we have as a regional fire authority, as we continue to grow, our contract cities continue to annex in with our benefit charges, to be a little bit nimble with that. But we're going to have to be especially concerted in our data analysis to make sure that we have the right amount of people, so that the weight of the resources themselves, and at certain times of the day. It happens every day where we're busy when people run up and down I-5, every SR, every highway, every interstate right now. Now they're going to be coming and stopping and then parking, coming back to that area, and maybe spending some more time to eat or shop, or refuel their vehicles and go to wherever they go. So it's going to change. We don't know what it looks like yet because it hasn't been done.
okay.
But fortunately, the infrastructure of where we're at and where it's landing in Linwood right now and through Mountley Terrace, we have some good opportunities to be adaptive and be able to do that. But we're going to be challenged like every other fire agency that is in the greater Puget Sound area, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I just want to recharacterize. I disagree. It's a big pile of money. I like to address maybe Chief Yeasman probably know more about that because he was intimately related on the capital city end. Right now we have a project Lake Shireen. We need to immediately do something about it. That condition is really bad. Right now we're acquiring the Linwood property to build a station. We need money for that. And then we also, right now, we're thinking of acquiring the one down in Edmonds, near the Swedish hospital. Okay, so we have so many projects. That 25 million, it's not a pile money. I don't think that 25 million cannot even meet our immediate needs on that. Okay, now we're talking about $30 increase. That is much less than the inflation and everything else in there. And I'm not sure that is really going to drive people crazy for $30 for the whole year. Okay, but I can guarantee you, if we delay this, maybe 2 years from now, as Commissioner Kennedy said, well, when things are rolling, from 2 years from now, from all the prediction, our situation economic is get worse. If you guys don't look at the stock market right now, because people are not concerned about all the negative things about the stock. So it would be worse 2 years from now, and we're trying to get more money. People are paying more attention. Now we're still kind of at the beginning of the storm in here. So anyway, I want you to think about from a taxpayer point of view. Okay.
So thank you, Melissa, for handing the document. It looks like the comprehensive plan put out by the Snohomish County Executive's Office that population will increase by 308,000 between 2020 and 2044, so over 24 years. And so that would average out to almost 13,000 each year of increase, and 95% of that future growth will happen in the urban growth areas. So pretty much the RFA, and Everett, and Marysville, I think, is what encompasses the urban growth areas. So somewhere in that strip, basically what Highway 9 to the water is going to have an average of 13,000 people move in over the next 20 years now.
Chief Eastman has the visual graphic that demonstrates that too. If you'd like
Sure,
to
can you
share that?
Does he have sharing capability?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
So if you can see that, this is from the facilities plan. If you look on the bottom, you can see the dotted line is based on 2018, 2034. This includes Montclair, Briar, Linwood, and Edmonds. And this was updated when the county's comprehensive plan was redone. And if you look, we're roughly right now between 250 and 275 population that we serve. I know we talk about daytime population going up, and we use the term 300. When you add Mill Creek, it's about 22,000 people. And if you look at where we are in 2034, from 2024, you're talking, between 50 and 70,000 people. Is the projection based on the capital facilities plan for our service area, not including the city of Mill Creek, based on what Burke and TCA did on the comp plan. And so for you, just for the board to know, this is part of phase 2. And I believe most of you I want to say you all received it in a booklet. So you have this information. I can make sure Melissa has it so you guys can go review. It has a narrative that goes along with it also. But that's based on the facilities plan and the phase 2 that we approved in January of this year. This is where that information came from.
Thank you. What's the acquisition price tag for that Verdant property?
We're anticipating $6 million is what we've been talking about. Just where we are with it is we've done a phase 2 environmental. There's some cleanup issues to go along with it that's going to adjust the price of that, and we're not in a place to deal with that yet. And there'll be a conversation here in the not too distant future with the board to talk about that at some point in time. We estimated for the Alderwood Mall Parkway and Value Village property, estimated $6 million plus or minus in the plan. And then for Station 22 property, and we already own Manor. We put in the cost of Cascadian if we chose to, the 4 infill stations identified in the plan, and estimated those in today's dollar between 2 and 3 million, just for budgetary purposes within the facilities plan, and obviously the market dictates that. But that's what's in your facilities plan that we approved in January of this year.
But then on top of the maintenance and all the other stuff, $25 million, you cannot do any of the stuff.
So with the combination of Station 22 and the Verda property, that's at 21.6 million. And that would, the bulk of that would likely come from that major facilities maintenance. The 25 million that's there, is that the idea?
Maintenance is about $2 million.
Yeah,
Just
I mean, I guess from staff's perspective, as we went forward for the approval to go start looking for property, to acquire property, the intent at that time is that those dollars would come from what's existing in the building reserve to do that work. So.
And the building reserve, is that something different than the major facilities?
No, that's, I call it the building reserve.
Oh, together.
Uses that term.
That's fine, I just want to make sure that it's, we're good if
I
it's
think you're saying the
synonymous.
same thing.
Okay, that's fine, I just wanted to make sure that we're still talking about the same line item, that was all I wanted to.
Just, Commissioner, just to put this in perspective, because I know not everybody has been here for a number of years or served on a subcommittee for the capital facilities plan or other items. But to put this in perspective, Station 22 that we just talked about was built in 1973. It is 49 years old. Station 23 was built in 1972. It is 50 years old. Wherever way we want to go with anything about this discussion, we're not putting money in Station 76 before we put it in 22, 23, or the other 5 top priorities. I'm very confident of that, having been in that building before. So if we're talking about the capital facilities plan or our needs in totality, we're talking about Legacy District 1 or 11 or City of Linwood fire stations that are in our cap plan currently, or to be determined, Mount Lake Terrace or City of Edmonds fire stations if they annex into our RFA that we don't own. And the fire station in Briar, District 1 built it. Just want to make sure from a perspective standpoint that those are our priorities, those stations that Commissioner Chan mentioned, because they have needs that need to be addressed in priority. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Chan, do you have anything further? We still have that motion on the floor.
I have the motion on the floor. I just have to, I appreciate the staff can do, but from my own personal professional opinion, if I were the CFO of this organization, I probably would say, yes, you know, we need that money. That's why I say.
Any further discussion, commissioners?
Maybe I didn't hear it correctly, but I'd like to hear from Chief what your opinion is of David's proposal, Commissioner Chan.
So all commissioners, I made my fire chief budget message back in October. We all had a lot of time to consider that proposal. I know that we're having discussions about that. This is one of the things that I said at the beginning of this meeting. We need to hear from you if there's anything else that you want us to add or edit from this message. I completely understand what Commissioner Chan is saying, that having lived through the recession in this organization and the impacts before the RFA was formed, before Mill Creek joined us, we need to have a very strong organization. But I understand as a resident within the RFA, the concerns of our communities, which includes the rates of taxation. The reserves are very important, and those banked monies can be available in the future when needed. But we're trying to have a balanced budget in the proposal as is. So I'm not saying Commissioner Chan is wrong. He's saying he has an opinion that he's looking for consideration, I think, from his elected official colleagues. And staff will pivot either way, and the CFO will, to make sure that we add the 2 million if approved or not. Hope that is clear for everyone. I'm trying to speak up, so if I sound like I'm yelling, I've been told that I couldn't be heard on the Zoom in. So I'm not yelling at anyone, so thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for the
Thank you.
response, because what I'm hearing is the same argument, the storm is coming, right? Commissioner Kenny, if I understood you correctly, you're saying we're headed for a recession, there are tough times ahead. The same thing, Commissioner Chan, if I understand you correctly, you're saying Wall Street Journal, a number of different credible sources are saying that we have a storm coming and that we need to prepare, but we have two opposing points. That is, move money, leave money alone. So I would turn that question then over to the rest of the commissioners here and say, what's your opinion? If that's okay with you.
Yeah,
Commissioner Lawrence?
yeah, but there's distinction there. I don't know how it all works, but CFO says it will, and Commissioner Kenny says it will raise taxes. So, it's you want to raise taxes or not? So, I think it boils down to that. Not,
fine points and moving money. It's gonna raise taxes if you do this plan.
Simplified, I like it.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner input? Liaison Todd.
Thank you. I see Mr. Rowland's hand is been up for quite a while. Are we missing him?
I don't see him on screen, so if it is his hand up?
It is.
Okay,
Yes, it is.
sorry, go ahead. I just got, there's a big screen in front of me, and I don't see your picture, so thank you,
That's
Liaison.
That's all right. So my understanding, I'm just going to kind of cover a few of the things that I've already heard the commissioners say, is that this is for most customers $30 more a year. 2.5, almost $3 a month. That's not going to make the difference in a recession. Maybe, and if it is, then that's a hell of a recession. So I think that kind of this organization is been a bit gun shy since 2008, and that's understandable. But when we had the chance to actually get funds at the lowest interest rates pretty much seen in our lifetimes, the argument was there's a recession coming. And now that the interest rates have gone up, well, we got to wait for a better time. If we're not going to spend money, then just say that we don't want to spend money. But trying to hide behind things that we don't know are going to happen in the future, we don't have certainty, we don't have clarity, I just think is a cop-out. When it comes to saving money, all these capital facilities plans assume that we're going to take out bonds. That's interest. That's interest the taxpayer is going to pay. And the more money that we do have ahead of those projects, the less chance for individual projects that we'll need to go for financing. And I think that's responsible, because sure, we could give the money back to the taxpayer now at that small amount. But in the future, if it's at 4, 5, 6% interest, every million counts when we're doing these big projects when it comes to the amount of interest that we'll be collecting. So I think it's prudent at this time to take it. I was kind of on the fence, but the amount of money and the impact to most of our constituents is going to be minimal. And it does seem like we have a imminent need, if it's not in the budget now, because it's an unknown, or whether it's just a year or two out that we just know it's coming. I think it's the prudent thing to do. We still have some overhead in case that when that recession comes, to keep our mill rate, beneath the limit. So I think we're being responsible.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rowland. Liaison Todd. Give your hand up.
Thank you, commissioners and chief and staff. I think I've heard staff present a budget, the chief's budget. I think I've heard the CFO support that budget. And I think I've heard them say they're not asking for this money. So this feels a little weird for us who are not the experts necessarily on this, the operations and the financial needs and this capacity of this organization to use that money, say they don't really want it this year. They're not saying they don't want it. They're being very careful, but they didn't ask for it. I'll tell you, my job here at the city, I don't need more money as a public works guy. I need the capacity to be able to manage projects responsibly. And there's a very difficult bidding climate right now for capital projects, very difficult climate to find the proper engineering resources to get good projects out there. And you guys are dealing with a 1-year budget, not a 2-year budget. We are not rushing forward to get more money until we know what projects we're going to build. I think this budget shows that there is a planning period during 2023, absorbing the annexation of Mill Creek, looking at the capital facilities plan overall, looking forward to possible annexations from Briar or other contract cities. And I would suggest we let that settle in and figure out where we're headed before we jump into some projects that maybe put the money in our pocket and getting the LGIP rate of 1 or 2% or whatever it is now, versus letting the taxpayers hold on to that at a time when things are tough. Every time they go to a store, they're experiencing hamburgers more expensive, or macaroni is more expensive, or a bottle of water is more expensive, or a gallon of gas is more expensive. That hits them every day. And yeah, maybe you think you can sneak in a couple of bucks a month, but they get charged by the year. And so it's $30 is not an insignificant amount of money. I just sat in my other meeting and listened to a very impassioned discussion by our council in the city of Mill Creek about whether they were going to take 1% or not. They decided not to, partly because of the promise they made to voters by annexing into Fire District 1, now become South County Fire RFA. There was some reluctance about that in the first place. We convinced them it was a good thing to do, but they're facing a huge increase in their personal taxes. And for them to hit, I'm speaking now for citizens here, to say another $30 on top of that is going to make people really wince. I don't think it's a time to hit them with another one. We don't have staff asking for that, demanding that, showing us how they need that for this future need. I know it's a future need, I get it, but I would suggest that some restraint is appropriate. When you look at it from the taxpayer standpoint, times are tight. Recession might happen, might not, don't know. That's the future crystal ball. But people don't talk about the recession in the grocery store. They talk about the price of bread. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Todd. So I'm going to talk like a politician here, based on taking off from Mr. Todd. The optics are very bad for the board to do this. I don't want to take the chance of this becoming somebody's reason to skewer the RFA. So I see this as I'm hearing more from experts, people know what they're talking about here. This is not maybe a good idea. I mean, yeah, I understand a little bit the economic arguments of doing this now, taking the money, but it's going to raise taxes, and the optics look pretty darn bad. So it's, especially as Mr. Todd outlined there.
All right. Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, okay. Number one, I really do not know characteristic this sneaking in, because it's the administration asked for $2 million. There's a banking capacity. They already asking for the $2 million. We cannot thinking another $2 million is just, we are sneaking in, we are getting more money. I completely, this is a public meeting. I do not want to say that is what that is how you characterize this. And we all agree of the $25 million, those are immediate need. Okay, I think Bob Eastman already told you, we will do all the acquisition. We don't have enough money to do all that stuff. So it's immediate need. It's, and the whole idea also too, I'm gonna repeat one more time. We are not saving in money. We don't take the money now. Eventually they pay now or pay later. Pay later is gonna pay more. And also the conditions, I guarantee you will be worse now, because we always the delay of the taxes in here. So, and I also do not subscribe to the situation that, well, if they need it, then we approve. We are the leader in here. We're not, otherwise Why don't we even have a meeting in here? Just agree with everything the chief said, no discussion. I think what we need to do is saving more operating expenses, and that will truly helping our taxpayer. Okay, capacity is you're buying an asset. If anybody understanding, you're paying asset to generate future benefit. I would rather see staff reductions or anything like that, rather than say, well, again, the word spending money this is not expense. If we have a balance sheet, it's capitalized. It will not even show up as expenses. So that's I'm sorry if I kind of compassionate about it, but I just vote whatever, agree with the majority of the people, and then let's move on.
All right, so you call the question?
Yes.
Okay, so vote. All those in favor of the increase to the 1.85, which would average out to about $30 a taxpayer, $24 a taxpayer, thank you. All those in favor of that, vote with your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
I only see pictures, so you voted nay, both of you voted nay, so the motion fails. All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
What was the vote count on that? 'Cause I didn't see Commissioner Rowland's vote.
Yeah,
I didn't see it either.
yeah, I think I was unmuted there, or I was muted. I thought I was unmuted. I'm voting aye.
All right, so that was 3 ayes and 4 nays. 4 nays being here on site. No? All right, Commissioner Chan, you, how many more items do we have to go through? Because that was 45 minutes.
No, since I'm failing this, I'm not sure I'm going to anymore, but I do want to point out something in here. On page, I think it's page on 19. 1 second. Page 19, all right? So the long-range forecast projections. From 2023, we're going 179,000 deficit, and 2028, our deficit is $5.6 million. Okay, so we are going to negative dispense trends in here. Okay, so one thing I want to do is that I'm going to oppose. Now, here I'm trying to get money into the equipment, but now I'm opposing buying the brush truck. That would save us some money, because we can still using the Groucho's truck, and then we are an urban firefighting department, so I'm not sure we need the brush truck, but on top of that, the staff and that type of thing. So I'd like to have a discussion on that.
A discussion as to whether or not to acquire the brush truck?
Yes. Cut that out from our budget.
I have some.
Commissioner Fahrenhoff.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that this last summer was incredible. We had, for the very first time, at least in any of my reckoning or monitoring, an activation of a wildland strike team to come into one of our areas for one of our gully fires, for lack of a better term. This, in my estimation, was unprecedented to launch that kind of resource, which we normally see as somewhere east of the mountains. We've also had what we call the 100-year fire over here as far as Bull Creek fire. That's also an incredible change in our environment. So what we're going to see, just to paint you a picture from my personal humble opinion, is that you're going to see more and more need for wildland type assets, especially vehicles that can turn in very short areas. We're talking almost go trails that are only wide enough to bring a small vehicle down. You can't bring one of our larger assets down. You can spend a lot of time with a lot of heavy equipment, big hose, and lots of cumbersome things that we use for normal structure fires that will just simply be too cumbersome to get up and down the hillsides and so forth. As a former guy that used to do this, I'd rather take the lightweight hose and so forth than the vehicles and get it as close to the problem as possible, not string enough plumbing to go from here to Mill Creek. So it's really a question of not if you need one, it's a question of when you're going to need one. We're relying on the generosity of our neighboring jurisdictions to come to our aid to bring those resources, but when we have state fire mobilization, those resources are typically added to the cash that go into other jurisdictions, so we may not have that luxury. So I think Chief's point in terms of having that resource accessible to us is important, and also it might be an opportunity to build a program around allowing maybe some of our volunteers to work wildland fires and so forth, and deploy the rig and let it pay for itself in the future. So it's probably one of the rarest assets you could own that could actually make money back for your RFA. So that's what I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Kenny.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Fernhoff, I appreciate all of those things. All of those things are true. The issue is who pays for that? That's the issue. Because we're talking about $250,000 of South County Fire taxpayer dollars. And so South County Fire doesn't protect the Cascade Mountains or Eastern Washington or Oregon or California. And so the area of South County Fire, when we have had these, what might be the chief has described as brush fires, we've used our engines that we currently have. And in my observation, they have been effective. We have resources in Eastern Snohomish County that are happy to come to our aid with brush trucks if necessary. So it's an expensive solution that doesn't have a problem in South County Fire. Now, may it someday? Maybe it will. It doesn't today. And this is something that will help protect parts of Eastern Snohomish County, or more likely Eastern Washington, or Oregon or California. But is that where we should be spending our taxpayer dollars? That's my argument of saying we shouldn't do this because we don't need this particular resource. I would make the same argument about the boat, the fireboat that we have down at the Edmonds Marina, except when we took over that contract, we agreed to keep that regional resource and pay for it. Partially initially and now completely. And we can't give that up, that responsibility. For the rest of South County Fire, we don't really need a fireboat, but for historical reasons, we have that, and it helps protect an area that's part of our contract city. It's part of our contract to keep that up. But that leans in the direction of a resource do we really need? I have argued here before, how about a helicopter? Maybe we should get a helicopter. We might be able to use a helicopter. What about one of those floating hovercraft? There are some hovercraft boats up on the Snohomish River from fire districts up there. One of our small streams might get really flooded. Maybe we could use a hovercraft. We can expand that argument to lots of things that would be great to have, but they all cost money. This one costs $250,000. My argument is that the people of South County Fire should not pay for that because we're not going to use that resource. And to the minimal extent that we may need that resource, we have other resources in this county that are happy to help us with that and would be proud to do so. We lead the county in fire issues and EMS issues in many ways. People are happy to accept our leadership. But this is an opportunity where we can let them help us. And they'd be very proud to do that. They have in the past, they will in the future. This is nice to have, but when we're facing a recession, we don't have to have it. That's why I agree with Commissioner Chan. We should not fund it right now.
Commissioner Lawrence? Yeah.
I think I asked this question before from the chief, that this brush truck is not something that will be income producing. It could, but we're not going to, is that correct?
That's correct. The $250,000 ask is the money to get our own brush engine or Type 6 to fully outfit it. We could deploy it if we choose to, but thus far, Getchell Fire District 22's chief and their commission has supported having that asset that they own, that their taxpayers have paid for, located down in our RFA with the request when it is mobilized for these other entities, areas, Bold Creek Fire, the event up in the city of Everett that we had in the month of October, that resource would be deployed. So this is for us to take care of and protect ourselves.
Right, it's for, you have it here, just in case.
That is correct, because, we have relied on our neighbors before. We've discussed that before. I've been on those incidences. But, every agency that's a fire department that borders us right now, except for the city of Mukilteo, has a brush engine. Tulalip Bay District 15, Everett, Marysville, Snohomish County District 4, Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue, as well as Snohomish County District 10, which serves Bothell. So those resources are around for those other agencies and entities that have their own different densities. I'm just talking about those areas when we have those incidences. I know not everybody was here when we talked about this, but if we hadn't changed the clocks and you drove north on I-5, you would see from 164th to 128th area that burned that's substantial. Structural engines can put that out, and so can brush trucks. But during the Bull Creek fire, when it was impacting the water that we drink, some of the electrical power that goes to our county, those are impacts. But that's up there, and I get that. But we have had incidences to be able to do that. It is a specialized piece of apparatus. And I wouldn't be doing my job as fire chief if I didn't recommend apparatus that can help support all of our areas, including those that abut brush and trees, as trees are cut down or houses or commercial structures are built that could add to our capacities. I agree, we're a leader in the fire service. We're a leader in this county. We don't lead in this category.
So 2 years ago, I was all for a brush truck, but I just, we're gonna, this nation's pretty much about ready to fall off a cliff for many different reasons, One thing, paying for people's college education and that kind of insanity. So I think we need to set the example of leadership of tightening your belts.
I appreciate what you just said, Commissioner, and I appreciate what Commissioner Chan offered earlier. One of the things, and you will find it on page 13 of 80 in the packet, or I believe if I have my readers on, if I read better, page 9 of the budget itself, you'll find a grants program administrator and grant writer contract. That was discussed before to bring someone in here as an FTE. Part of the ability to go get an apparatus like this, especially with what's been recognized at the state level and also our county level, is to maybe go secure this asset and get a discount on it, whether that's a partial grant, full grant, or as Commissioner Kenny had mentioned, back after 9/11, the Marine 16 unit that was partially funded by the federal government with matching grants by the city of Edmonds and what was the Edmonds Fire Department Foundation. To have that asset for a 20-year period, we're now past that, to be a regional asset, to address the needs along the Puget Sound.
Well, I am all for brush truck for free.
That's the way, that would be the first goal, be able to do that. I just wanted to mention that item because it is part of our thought process as staff. And I appreciate what Commissioner Kenny said. We've had these discussions before at other commissioners at Snow Isle and other places. I just think that this would be another asset to deploy. And we can certainly rely on our other automatic and mutual aid partners. We have to, just like they rely on us for other things.
For a couple more years.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point that Commissioner Kenny has made in terms of, the expense. I don't see the need going away. Chief, could you describe something called the Wildland urban interface to us and give us a reason that this brush truck is potentially unique in that aspect. It's a unique word and not very well socialized.
I can try to do it by looking at all of you and understanding where you live, understanding where you're at in the urban growth area. But the areas that are now being developed in the county within Mukilteo's urban growth area, there used to be trees that motorcycles were driven on, that are being built onto a hillside where trees are still going to be at elevation, subject to high winds off the Puget Sound. The area that's now developed, the Highway 99 in the Picnic Point, Martha Lake area, where there wasn't apartment complexes, commercial structures, all those things where the greatest amount of growth has gone. The Lake Stickney area that has protected growth, that now has LDMRs in all these different areas. Out to Silver Firs and Gold Creek, where there has been a lot of structures built, but then you get out of the urban growth area and you're looking at trees. I don't want to catch every commissioner that's here, present or not. You can't spin in a circle and not see trees around here. That's what makes us the evergreen state. But the wildland urban interface are those areas where people have basically gone against nature, cut down areas to put homes where there's still trees and combustibles on the other side of them. That's probably the best definition that I can offer that to you. And I think we can all visualize that. Some of our areas where we live might be named after trees or woods. And that's, you know, some having grown up in the city of Edmonds and thinking about Gills Park, being able to try to address that without a brush rig, to be able to even draft out of Gills Creek, going down to the Puget Sound when you run out of water. These are the things that I'm talking about. And we've done well with what we have. This is just another what we call tool in the toolbox. And again, I thank Snohomish County Fire District 22 and Getchell, between Arlington Heights, City of Marysville, and Granite Falls, well, was Lake Stevens, to be able to provide us that asset. That's great. All these partner agencies are great. But we talked a couple of years ago about this is going to come onto the west side of the Cascades. Well, it just happened. It didn't go out until the snow fell.
Thank you, Chief. And you mentioned something else that resonated with me, and that is you said that there's clearing going on. What typically happens with clearing is it's replaced with fast-moving, fast-burning light brush, which changes the dynamic of how quickly fires spread over in this part of the area. Most likely, you will not get your brush truck, at least from the discussion here this evening, but I don't think that substitutes the need. The need will grow, and I really support your idea about grants and potentially coming in, and even cost share. Maybe you can come back to the board at some point. It may not be a full 250,000. Citing Commissioner Lawrence's concern about timing, but the need doesn't go away. And so maybe some sort of partnership through a grant or other federal funding, we can look at this from a smaller dollar figure point of view, but certainly not diminishing the request for the need. I think I wanted to just acknowledge that.
I appreciate that, and just, you know, understanding Commissioner supply chain issues, how long it takes to get a pumper or a ladder, and these other items. We're not the only people considering adding these things. It's going to take some time. Staff will have a very conscientious effort, especially if the grants program administrator and grant writer contract is also approved, to be able to talk through this, figure out how we can find this, what's the best way to do it economically. And even if we ordered it on January 2nd or 3rd, we'll be lucky if we get it by the tail end of the wildland season, or if Old Creek light happens again somewhere else in October, we might have it by then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for this discussion item? Commissioner Chan?
No, I think I speak enough for the whole meeting already.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your good questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to,
Mr. Chair.
oh, sorry.
So does Commissioner Chan have a motion, or how are we handling this issue?
It was a discussion. He never made, no motion was ever made.
Commissioner Chan, you want to make a motion?
Sure, for the record, I lose twice. I'm gonna make a motion to cut the this, the $250,000 for the brush truck, but if, again, if the chief want that $250,000, he can cut it cut other expenses. So I'm emphasizing the dollar amount, cut $250,000. I'm not specifically saying the brush truck.
Could you tidy that up a little bit into a motion, David?
Okay, I make a motion to cut $250,000 from what Chief Overs had proposed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Kenny seconds the motion. We already had discussion, so let's go to a vote. All those, the motion on the floor is to remove $250,000 from the chief's budget. All those in favor of removing $250,000 from Chief Hovis's budget, say aye.
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 I see 3 ayes. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. That's 1, 2,
Thank you.
3, 4 nays. All right, thank you. On to unfinished business, item B, continued deployment discussion with.
Oh, wait,
Oh.
Mr. Chair, are we done with the budget discussion? I had some discussion for budget separate from what Commissioner Chan may have.
Oh,
I didn't know if Commissioner Chan's done.
I'm done.
fair point.
I lose 2.2 already. I don't want the third one losing.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenny, that's a fair point. You have a.
Yes, I wanted to, glad Commissioner Chan jumped in and made some comments. He actually kind of addressed kind of the far end of the spectrum, the rich end of the spectrum with some of these items. Didn't expect the argument to go quite like that. But I wanted to note, before we get to next week, that I don't approve of the chief's budget. I intend to vote against it. I believe we are, the chief, and if the board adopts it, is adding too many items in that are unnecessary. Things that we don't need, as I have previously described, in a time where we're facing recession and inflation is going up, both for food that people buy, but also that's affecting their incomes, that now is not the time to be raising taxes. I think, and maybe Mr. Bothwell can assist me, but at page 17 out of 80 of the packet, which is also noted as page 13 of the chief's preliminary budget, I did want to just be sure that under benefit, it's listed as benefit charge in the middle of the page, and then description of changes beneath that the chief's preliminary budget includes a 2% increase in property tax revenue and a 2% increase in the benefit charge. Mr. Bothwell wanted to make sure, is that what it says, and is that correct?
2%, yeah, the increase for 2023 for the benefit charge is 2%, that aligns with 2% increase, historical 2% increase in property tax, plus the benefit charge that will come from the annexation.
But so I'm just trying to clarify, is there a 2% increase in property tax, both fire and EMS?
Yeah, so
Or,
it's 1% for the annual increase, allowable increase under state law, and then 1% that we associate with new construction.
and so you're saying that's a total of 2% then?
That's correct.
And then also then 2% in the benefit charge?
Correct.
So that increase, I don't think is necessary, and I think we should be more cognizant of our expenses. And when I go through the list of the chief's proposed expenses, additional expenses, beyond everything else that funds South County Fire at page 13 out of 80, page 9 of the packet, the items in particular that I would not include the EMS assistant chief, the trained battalion chief, the deputy fire marshal ad, the PIO redundancy staff ad, the grant program administrator, the ACT coordinator, the brush truck, the rescue solo washers. Those items, as I calculate them, add up to about $1.6 million. And so we're going to increase taxes for the taxpayer to fund these items that I don't believe we actually need. And it'd be nice to have. I'm not saying they're not nice to have, but they would that they would help with the organization. I don't dispute that. The issue is, should we be raising taxes to do that? Particularly where, at least according to page, we were on it earlier, page 26 out of 80, page 22 of the budget, in the middle of the page, transfer in from the budget, from the general fund into the major facilities maintenance reserve, which is for 2023 going to be $25 million. There's a transfer in, arguably, of fresh tax dollars of $500,000 added to what Commissioner Chan doesn't like it, but I describe it as a pile of cash. So it's kind of the left hand doing what's the right hand doing. The bottom line is we're raising taxes and we're funding positions and items that we don't actually need. They'd be nice to have, but we don't actually need them. And in this particular climate, I don't think now is the time to raise taxes to do that. So I'm opposed to these items, and that makes me opposed to the budget overall. So I just wanted to note that before we get to next week. They'll be voting no on the budget.
Commissioner Kenny, is that everything?
That is, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure thank you. Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, certain of us commissioners often mention that we are here representing the people, but we all know they don't have a clue. Okay, so it really means it comes down to our personal thoughts on things and how we feel things should go. In this case, things have changed, and we need to set the example as a public entity of tightening the belt, even though, of course, cutting across the grain of the insanity that we see nationwide, spending money we don't have. So we have to do it. Commissioner Kenny says it'd be nice, it would be good to have these things, but we need to work as economically and stretch as much as possible to the storm is coming. I believe we're ready. We're going for the big crash. Now, if I'm wrong, well, we can celebrate next year that we, myself and Commissioner Kenny, were wrong. So, but hey, no.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, since I'm going to use this segment, kind of my general opinion in here. Number one, in the last 5 years, we have not increased any stations at all. And yet we have a lot of administration additional help. And I asked, well, what are the tasks, how many hours? Define why you need that, but I never got that. And because in the interest of time, I don't think they have enough time to do it. Let me suggest that next year, and every single new job subscription need to be accounted, how many hours they needed for that, not just because we're busy, okay? I have this, I don't know, can you see it? It's called Captain Task Book. They spell out exactly what every single thing they did. And I would like to, every single job, even accounts payable, account, whatever, what are the job, how many hours the estimate to take. That's how most of the matrix that's set up by private company do that. And they don't just hire someone because we're busy. So that is what I oppose. And second thing I want to say that commissioner at a disadvantage because I cannot disprove the other way. I also remind people, last year we took the whole banking capacity, okay? And now this year, we just went into the 50%, yet we have the big discussions in here. And then also, I want to remind people, I went to the seminar last year I mentioned here. It basically is saying that a commissioner needs to be a leader and not a spectator. And I'm really concerned about, I'm completely disadvantaged with the staff. And basically, we're here serving whatever when the chief asks for the $2 million, it's okay. It's not tax raised, it's not raising tax, it's not sneaking in. And yet As a commissioner suggests that, we just characterize completely differently. It's very difficult for one commissioner or two commissioner to really get into some points in there. I hope that we will be changing the whole budget process, and we really need to be maybe, I think Chief mentioned that one of the finance committee to prepare, because right now we're open in the meeting, disagree, but we are at disadvantages of even any criticizing any part of the budget. And if everything deferred to the chief, I don't think we should be here. So that's my comment. Because I think on the old commissioner, they were engaged. I have to say that Chief probably agree with us. We have 6 chiefs in here. I think the commissioner is the one who brought from 2008 to the financial stability of this organization. I really hope we all commissioners be more engaged and really able to speak up, criticizing, whatever, not criticize, suggestions and stuff like that, and not being at disadvantages. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. Chief Hovis.
I don't want to cut up any commissioners who put their hands up, but we can't see them. But as we are now one meeting before potentially voting on this budget, it's great to get some feedback on some of these things, including this page 13 of 80, page 9 of the budget items that have been discussed, including the brush truck. So we beat that one up pretty good. So I think we can stop with that. But when District 1 and 11 merged and consolidated, the same amount of chiefs that were had between those two organizations, even after they merged, equals more than what's in this room right now. So we do, I think, starting with the top, we need to put the importance on EMS like we have all talked about, and have another assistant chief to have some more depth and focus on EMS, which is a critical service need for our communities and our most frequently 911 call asked for. That's why I'm asking for that. The training battalion chief, we showed the comparable agencies of like size, and we are at the bottom for the amount of people training our employees. That's what that ask is for. In addition to adding Station 76 and those 20 to 25 firefighters this year for next year. The addition of the 10 firefighters to bring the city of Edmonds back to its staffing levels that we hired this year, that they brought in 2010. So now we're at 30 to 35. Okay. Also to bring us up to speed with the previously commission approved city gate study, first motion by Commissioner Schrock to add 8 FTEs to the budget after the RFA was formed, plus the 12 that came the subsequent year, plus the additional of the 3rd peak activity unit deployed by the RFA since then. So we have added staff to the field. Commissioner Chan, that was really to bring us back down memory lane for at least 2 of the commissioners that are here with a part of that, but also for the commissioners now and staff that is watching this meeting. Because commission in the past and commission in present, staffs in the past and staff in the present have been trying to support the streets. We are due for another analysis of what those needs are. We talked about that with Sound Transit. But as this RFA has grown in size with personnel, and not, from my opinion, commensurately grown with the amount of staff. Going back to the RFA formation video, I'll try to imitate the person's voice. What was 5 fire chiefs is now 1. We talked about this the other day. When I came from Mount Lake Terrace, 3 chiefs. Linwood had 4 chiefs. District 1 and 11, you'd be able to fill this whole room with them, right? City of Edmonds, 3 chiefs, right? All of those things, as we have grown, our administration, those are those economies of scale that we talk about, okay? So I wouldn't ask for it if I didn't think we needed it. I think it's important to have an assistant chief to be able to lessen some of the workload on others and be able to focus on EMS. I think it's important. That's why I asked for it. Training battalion chief, the same thing. Deputy fire marshal, just want to mention with the addition of the city of Mill Creek, that contract still needs to be finalized, but that's for that workload as well, for the deputy fire marshal ask. That will be an offset as well. The PIO redundancy, again, it's about public education, and we've seen so much of the community's needs change, especially during the pandemic and everything we're doing electronically. And some of this is about successorship as well, as we've only had one PIO on our staff, 25 years with Ms. Hines. And she has developed great knowledge. We need to think about her successorship as well in supporting the staff. I do want to mention that the ACT coordinator is not an ask that is not already here. That person is here. You've met her. She's been at our events. Previously, the other half of her salary was through a grant which is not expired. If we can get other people's money or OPM to support anything, including ACT, that's great. But we talk about that. We're over 10,000 people that we've talked about antidote, compression, CPR, and tourniquet. That's the person that's the primary deliverer of that. And she's been doing that 40 hours a week. I think we all would agree that that's an important thing, and to continue it. And we need to cut that in half. I'm only asking for the difference with that. And the rescue solo washers, I appreciated the input that happened. But as the presentation that happened from Battalion Chief Devon Uderkow, that's not one I'm going to pull as a chief, because we've talked a lot about our cancer rates with all of our employees, the information, how we're so much higher than the general population. And because I'm not going to belabor it, because I've had somebody in my family die of it, and I hope it's not from the gear shoe. And the sad times that we've had here with the people that we've lost have been based on cancers. And that's why I think it's important. And so if I can cut some things here and there and balance this thing more, I'd love to do it. But I really wanted to just bring it back. I understand why people might vote no. I completely understand it, but we've been talking about this for a long time. I haven't been able to go through those items. So I want to get on the record for the commission and our public that we serve and our staff that's watching, and give you my why I think these are important. Because it's been a little bit. And we've had some commissioners that haven't been able to make the meetings too for, that makes sense. I just wanted to get that out there. I think they're valuable. And but I know my lane, and that's to propose you a budget along with the staff. I know the commission really approves the budget. You are the gatekeepers of that for our residents and our voters. We understand our role, but we understand that we need to advocate where we can and understand our place. That's my soapbox on this page. Thank you.
Commissioner Farnoff. Thank you, Chief Hovis.
Chief Hovis, that was an excellent explanation of your priorities. And I also burdened you with reprioritizing this list in a previous meeting, because it was a list that was sort of random, and we didn't really have clarity as to what the most important thing was to you. And I wanted to point out on the 295 here for your EMS position, that also includes a vehicle, doesn't it, Chief Maxwell?
Yes.
Okay, right. So that's not just a body.
Correct.
That's equipment. That's all the things that go to support that position. So that's why the ticket item is a little higher than maybe some of the others, right?
That's correct. And we're short on staff vehicles, and I'm happy to trade out to one of those Tauruses that you guys made very good too. We need to get him in.
Yeah. It's a styling car. Got it. So potentially, if you did some equipment movements on that dollar figure could be less.
On the one time, yes, but on the ongoing, no.
Okay, all right. And then you had discussed some of the other items here on the list. You know, I can't speak for my fellow commissioners here. I think the EMS position, just in talking with Chief Maxwell and learning more about what the dependencies are going to be for our RFA and next year, and so forth. Building in redundancy, building in just in case we have a loss of institutional knowledge and leadership somewhere along the way. We have to be prepared for that, and it's something that cannot materialize out of thin air just because we're saving a line item or a budget item. We do have to look at the line of succession. Of course, staff has already had this in mind. They're grooming and training, I'm sure, but I would just submit to you that that's probably the only thing on the list, with the exception of potentially the chaplaincy service, that really strikes a chord with me right away in terms of high priorities. I sort of reprioritize this list on my own. But I see your point, and training is very important, especially as we have ongoing mergers with different cities and so forth. That requirement's going to go up. I just wanted to leave that out for your consideration, commissioners, that I think the EMS position, even though it might look like, and Commissioner Chan, you and I have talked about this, once we add a position, that position is there forever, and so forth. I think in this particular case, because of the growth and our forecasted growth, this is an important topic to have folks having their consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chief Overs, quick question. EMS, that 80% of what the RFA does, is that right? 80% of the calls?
Depends on where it is, call volume wise, it's, about that, it depends. It's been almost as high as 90% the city of Edmonds, it's just very strong.
Okay, but that's still the strongest component.
It's still the greatest amount of
Demand.
Resource demand. And I think we're going to get to that a little bit later in the packet itself when we talk about the most recent response data too.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I want to clarify my position. I don't mean to be opposing to the staff. I did talk to Chief Hovis and both CFO Bob Foyle. I said, I trust your right now because I am kind of person, data-driven, objective kind of person. It will make me much easier if you can quantify the hours, what they're doing and all of that. On top of that, I think that's a good measure on each job description, what they do. And if something we can help them efficiency, save them time, then there's opportunity to do that too. But I completely support your hiring this time because basically not by quantity, but whatever evidence, but I trust your judgment and CFO Boswell's judgment. So I support all of that. But I was hoping next year you can do more data analysis type of thing that make me approving the process easier, right? So that is the thing. I don't mean to be, oh, you're not, those positions are not justified. Actually, now, while at it, one more position I think is really critical now, the successions of Chief Eastman. Okay, he holds a really unique situation, knowing the fire service, and I don't know how you're gonna do it, but somebody got to be, he need to download his information to hopefully one person that we can all go to. So I wouldn't even mind have a budget for that. So I don't know your thoughts on part of the succession plan, because Chief Eastman already indicated he's not going to be here for long. And I'm concerned about that position.
Commissioner Lawrence? Oh.
No, I was just going to answer, if I could, I would answer his question a little bit.
About
Go
what?
ahead, sir. About
Chief Eastman? No, he's not going anywhere.
Right, he's not allowed to leave.
Okay, leave it. So I just wanted, I understand.
We wrote it into his contract, didn't know that.
I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Chan, with the city of Briar on the horizon. Now that the commission, you've approved that 7-0 to go to a vote in April, and most likely Mount Lake Terrace considering something similar, hopefully in the future, now that they have an interim city manager that has just taken the reins for now while they do a search. And hopefully city of Edmonds on the horizon, while the last couple of months, we've been working on some good projects here, and with this budget and support of the mission that we feel every day, sounds like we're gonna have Chief Eastman around for at least next year, so then we can talk a little bit more about that, maybe outside of the budget discussions here tonight, about what you just said, Commissioner Chan, about successorship on the role of Chief Eastman has historically played. I just want to get that out there for you.
Thank you both. Commissioner Lawrence.
So the population's growing, there's more real estate being built. Our share of the taxes, just based on that, is increasing. Is your budget going to make it so that we have to raise taxes, or do we have the money coming in based on the growth? Because we're growing because they're growing. That growing paying for our growth.
The answer is no, not necessarily
why
due to
not?
the limitations that CFO Bothell can go over about new construction and year-over-year increases, so, and we have some lag. That's a question that
So, yeah,
Chris can answer very quickly.
so we do get to tax new construction and improvements to property. So every year when we get the 1% is capped, the 1% annual increase is capped by state law. That other 1% that we were talking about, that's tax on new construction. So it doesn't affect existing property owners' tax bill. It's just a tax on the value, the increased value of improvements in the district. So we are getting a tax on that. But to Chief's point, the overall tax burden or the increase can't increase more than 1% per year for the rest of the RFA.
So can't we just plan our financial needs around how it grows without factoring the lag time? Just tighten our belt for a while, and then the lag catches up with, we catch up with the lag, and
Well, the average increase annually is about 1% of the assessed value in the RFA. So it's not keeping up with years where we have inflation of like over 9%.
but even that extra new growth, which causes the lag, is a little bit before we start being able to get that percentage out of the new growth. The new growth isn't gonna help us when you got 9% inflation.
No. It's just too big of a delta.
Well, no. But we're not the federal government, we can't print money and give it away free.
If we get back to a situation where we have more normal inflation, like that target of 2 to 2.5%, then property tax gets a little closer, and that difference, we fall behind less every year, and in some years we don't fall behind at all based on that. High inflation is really problematic for us.
Yeah, I mean, all government entities, well, we just raise taxes, stick it to the non-government employees who don't get a raise. And somewhere you gotta start to stop the cycle, you know. I'm sorry, you know, it just, I like all you guys, you know, but, and you may quit because you don't get, you know, things aren't going your way. I mean, you're unhappy, and
I think the biggest thing, Commissioner Lawrence, that I've seen is Initiative 747 that was passed by the voters of Washington State in 2001, kind of sets the rules that how the limitations fundamentally that we can collect a lot of our revenues. So that really changed things for government in general. I think that's been the big one for us.
So we're unique right now because the benefit, by getting the benefit charge allowed us to have bank capacity that allows us to go increase what we collect as a result of the bank levy capacity that we have as a result of the benefit charge. Without that, historically, we're limited to the 1%, and like CFO Bob will talk of the new construction. To get more than that, any given year, we have to go to the public and ask for it in a little bit. We're unique today because we have the ability on the general levy. We have bank capacity that we can capture that doesn't require us to go to vote of the people. Once that's gone,
you say capture, that's not raising taxes.
it does, right? It raises it, but once the bank capacity, once we've used that bank capacity, we're just unique today because we have it. We're limited to only increasing taxes by 1% a year unless we go ask the voters for more. So we're limited to 1% unless we go ask them to raise the levy.
So if the figure of 1.5 million, that will reduce the amount we have to raise
So we're just unique because we have bank levy capacity, which is something that doesn't happen very often in fire authorities and fire districts,
yeah,
right?
so it's good that we did it, but maybe now isn't the time to raise taxes.
Well, that's the conversation you guys
Yeah,
can have.
it's like-
I think just to add to what Chief and CFO Bothell was saying is is historically though, we're limited to 1% on property tax increases by statute. Anything more than that, we have to go ask the public to increase it higher.
Right.
Right? And
Which
so
is good.
the citizens then have a voice of
At
anything
that
over the
point,
1%.
yeah. But we're not talking about that, we're talking
Right.
about
Oh, I agree.
right
but-
now, raising taxes, potentially, and that's truly, that's where it really is, the commissioners, you know. Whatever it is, we got elected because my blurb said, you know, look better than the other guys. And people picked it, you know, on that voters pamphlet, that's not, you know. I have a feeling that most people, especially when we're trying to get into other entities into the RFA, or want them to, because we think it's better for them and everybody else, but you know, let them all get in and then we suck it to them, okay?
Well, I don't have,
I didn't mean that publicly, but it's important.
yeah, no, I know we're just
This is
talking
a
about,
joke.
I know we're just talking about this year, but the commission at the time, with staff's plan and the commission's approval went, and the voters approved a benefit charge much higher than we anticipated. And the city of Mill Creek voted in, I think the final was 74%. Benefit charge might have been 76%, 72%, I don't know if the commissioners can remember. I can't recall a fire district 1 EMS levy or fire levy failing in the past that I can recall. Maybe any of the other commissioners could, but
Well, going out and asking for the vote is a big difference between like, someone says sneak in, which I kind of like that idea, that's what we'd be doing. You know, they don't understand and no one really cares, but I think Mr. Todd understands what that is.
It is.
He's saying like, there are optics there, so.
there is, and what my point was is just that at some point we have to go back to the voters and talk about our fire levies and EMS levies. We've historically done that, and that is the checks and balance for an agency like us.
Right, I mean, because too much of our society lives beyond the means. Look at the federal government. I mean, just giving it away. It's like, shoot, here you go. This is only $20 million. Here you go. We didn't even ask for it. So we can't live in that universe.
All right, thank you. Do you have any other questions for the budget? All right, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break to stretch our legs and come back at 9 o'clock. All right, good 10-minute break for me. Move into unfinished business, section item B, continued deployment discussion with Chief Hovis.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. We talked about this a little bit before last month, and this was an ask to bring back. The Commissioner Kenny was not here. Commissioner Chan had mentioned, let's have more discussions about deployment, because we've been doing things a certain way for a number of years. And one of the asks that was mentioned by the board and the request for me to work with the chair to bring this back was to have some more recent data about what we're looking like for trend lines this year to finish up 2022 and what some of the previous years have looked like. So on page 54 of your packet, you'll find the agenda bill for this item, which is really just bringing this back for continued discussion. Chris G has the original graphics that were presented at the previous meeting that talked about this issue in general. I will make this brief. We have a dispatch system that has consolidated. We are going to sometime in 2023, most likely in the month of January, if Snow 911 is able to do it, to have some different determinant codes. We can change some of our low acuity calls and split in half some of the calls that have historically been called medic calls. Going to a system that's more nationally recognized or fully implementing the ProQA MPDS system. That's something, a lot of acronyms, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those, but some of the things that Chief Maxwell and the EMS professionals have been working at this county for a long time. Chris, could you bring up that graphic really briefly for those that didn't have it in the packet or maybe watching? So very quickly, What used to be just a couple of different call types in our county, used to be 3, then it's 4, can now be bifurcated down to send a different level of response for the different needs of the other person on the phone that's calling 911 for themselves or not. One of these, the day we presented this, I happened to, via Commissioner Farnahoff's request, have a cup of coffee to learn a little bit more about the RFA. And someone slipped and fell, which would have been a 3-person dispatch from the closest station 17 that went to 911, would have been what was a Bravo call, or lights and sirens coming from the fire station closest. Station 17 was in service. Based on he, I, or anyone else at the location, it would have been an Alpha non-code call with the potential opportunity for follow-up with some Omega second-party services with our CRP program that we talked about with the people that had that near miss that day. So we talked a little bit more about that, which is a great development. So commissioners that in the past on the Snow 911 board, currently on it, or those that approved to merge SNOCOM and SNOPAC to have a countywide dispatch system, good stuff. Probably more appropriate wheel turns. Let's go to the next slide, Chris. Okay, Chief Isotelo also talked about this. I did the open. Chief Isotelo was talking about the content. This is a lot of different determinant codes. So unless you work at the fire department, this is what makes us go. It's not a lot of important information we had in the packet. Next slide, please. This is an overview picture, commissioners, you're very familiar with. It's in our annual reports to all of our cities. It's in the reports that we give to you. It's what we look at to show, sort of like a monopoly, hotels. The bigger that structure is the more people we have at the fire stations. Those that are closer to high population areas or have more needs, they've gotten bigger over the years. And then we went to another slide. Next slide, please. To talk about how we may change deployment and also add Station 76 in the area of Mill Creek into our RFA. The areas in the checkered areas, those contract city areas, Station 18, Briar, Station 19, Mount Lake Terrace, Station 16, 17, and 20 in Edmonds, those service levels, the amount of people there, their ranks, all those things can't change. Those are in contracts with 2 cities, started in 2005, and they have not changed. The same staffing level in Briar today and in Mount Lake Terrace today is what was there in 2001 that was solidified in a 20-year initial term agreement in 2005 and continues today. Stations 16, 17, and 20 are also under contract. That contract was entered in 2010, modified, and became effective in 2017 to reduce staffing levels. And commissioners, you'll remember those remedial, the threshold notification, remedial measures, that extra 2-person unit that went in service in Edmonds back in March. But really, this is a little bit of a refresh just on the ask. I don't want to go through the whole presentation again to talk about what we talked about that day in as much as we have an opportunity now that we're covering nearly 300,000 people in our RFA and have all but 5 stations currently that we can make modifications to our staffing model to do some things differently and take a top-down look approach, serving Linwood, Mill Creek, and the unincorporated areas with some changes. And those changes would be potentially increasing staffing in the future, but not now. This isn't a budget ask. You notice I didn't ask for any more people. It's redeployment of some of our paramedics to have a 2 paramedic system in some of our busiest stations, supported by other units around them so we can strategically place our ALS personnel. This has been something that we talked about the last time Chief Maxwell did his EMS presentation. Commissioners, you mentioned bring it back. This is a way to, since 1999, when District 1 and 11 changed their deployment model. They changed it in Terrace and Edmonds, Briar, and Linwood along the years to do something just a little bit different, to make sure we have continued equity of service across our RFA, also protect the areas that need extra protection, maybe along the water, in the Lake Serene areas, or our scouting other fire districts like Fire District 4 that have different deployment models that are a distance away to support us, or SERPR, just to work a little bit differently. So bring us back in time, there was an administration group that worked with the deployment tag to come up with some different recommendations. And we would plan to do those when time appropriate in 2023, when Snow 911 can implement this system. But one thing that wasn't here that time was Chief Maxwell. He wasn't able to make that meeting as EMS chief. We asked for some more data and overview, and Chief Eastman has provided that within the packet itself. And realistically, Commissioner Chan, I'm trying to think of any other reasons why you wanted to bring this back just for more discussions, other than I know Commissioner Kenny was absent and might have some good comments or questions or concerns. But this is the way that we need to think about our baseline staffing right now, our minimums of deployment of all of our personnel, BLS, ALS, battalion, MSO, captain, all the way around. And with that, I'm going to pause and see if I'm going to turn this over to Chief Eastman to go over just high-level overview what year-to-date looks like, because some of those things I've talked about, 3 times standard deviation, increase of this, that, wheel turns, you're going to get a little bit of a look now as we're almost towards the end of the year of where our RFA is now, ways you've seen it before, commissioners, about how busy our people that provide the service on the streets have been. And it's a good preview. So Chief Eastman, you've got the call.
Thank you, Chief. I'm hoping this will be the last time we do any of the ops data in PowerPoint. I'm hoping that, depending on Chief and the Chair, that hopefully in the work session in December, we'll be able to bring Jennifer in and give you a preview of what she's been working on behalf of us, to provide dashboards where the board will be able to look at this anytime they want, real time, and consume and look at it how they want, and touch and feel, along with some of the other things that she's working on for EMS specifically, to make some things more efficient in the QA/QI environment. That's coming, and I'm hoping that when we get there, we won't be doing this by PowerPoint after that, once we get the platform exactly where it needs to be for everybody to look at that. So this will be a really quick look at the base information that we historically have provided. If you look at our yearly call, we went back to 2018. You see the 2018 being at 2,900. We saw some dips in 2020. That's a result of the pandemic. You can see us going back up in 2021. 2022 is the first 3 quarters of the year. Jennifer did some calculations and looks that we're going to be about 3,000 calls greater in 2022 than 2021. So that's a significant increase. It's for us, that's a significant increase in call demand over a single year. So obviously, when we get the rest of the results, we'll update that, but that's what we're trending at now. This is busy, but here's our monthly call demand for the last 5 years, realizing 2022 is year to date. And so you don't see it October, November, December, but you can see every month we've been higher in calls in 2022. It's just another way to look at the overall call demand. And these are incidents that happen within the RFA. We also measure wheel turns, as Chief always talked about. This is the number of times every single apparatus in the RFA responds to a call. You can see 18, 19, 20, we made some deployment changes where we're sending additional resources on certain call types. So you see an increase of wheel turns within the RFA. You can see in 2022, projected wheel turns is 71, just under 72,000. Significantly higher than 2020. We go back and look at 2018 and 19 as launching from knowing that 20 and 21 were part of the pandemic, so they're not reliable. I don't consider them reliable for us to look at for trending. We typically go back to 18 and 19 and see where we were then, because the pandemic changed and altered some of the things we did specifically in the RFA. more specifically how we dispatch.
Can I
Here's
ask some
monthly.
questions?
Yeah,
Yeah. So can you refresh my memory? What's the difference between the wheel turns? What was the incident? Are those a cancellation? That
oh,
call up?
so the incidence is a call for service within the RFA. And then wheel turns is how many times our units are actually responding on calls. So you're seeing the number of wheel turns, which is different than the call demand. And the reason is because there's multiple call types that we send 1, 2, 3, 4 to our mid-rise calls where we're sending 12 units, maybe 12 units, many more units based on the risk that they're going to. So
That'd be like 12 wheel turns, 7 wheel turns.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll have one EMS call that may get 2 units going or 3 units going, or if it's a CPR, you may get 5 units going. So you'll have one incident, but you'll have 5 units turning out for that call. Does that answer your question, Mr. Chen?
Yeah, no, but what happened? A lot of cancellation. No, at one time, we're gonna study cancellation really. This is net, right?
Yep, this includes cancellations, so I haven't broke out cancellations in this.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Can I interject real quick? You may alarm, 12 units for structured fire, first unit on scene says, nope, everything's great, and then you clear the rest. It's not a cancellation of the entire call, like 911 is called back and said, no, the guy's alive, we resurrected him from the dead. But that will, do you understand that, Commissioner Chan, that there might be say 12 units that are alarmed? The first person that gets on scene says, no, food on the stove, forget about it. Then they cancel everybody, even though they haven't rolled their wheels or
Right.
these kinds of things from the barn.
Yeah, I understand.
And we actually do have the ability, and we do look at that, although I didn't do it in this presentation, that's kind of getting more into the weeds, but we do know how many times units were dispatched and canceled. We also know how many times they were dispatched and never left the station. So we capture that. John and the rest of the ops groups look at that and utilize that to help make some of their decisions when they talk about what resources they're going to send on what call types. And Chief Maxwell will use some of that information historically as we look at Alpha Bravo, Charlie Delta, Echo, the work he's doing with dispatch. We have the data within the database within CAD that Sean can look at historically where we are and determine what resource never has the second unit arrive on scene and help validate what Chief Maxwell and the team at the county is doing with regards to some of the deployment things we're changing. The next one is calls per day by station. So you can see, and this is their average. Station 11, Station 15 are our 2 busiest stations, followed by 10. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And you can see the calls per day by station. And Station 11, Station 15 have more resources at it, which makes sense. And if you look at our deployment, how our deployment's laid out, a lot of it follows our demand at each fire station. If you look at the number of calls at a station annually and some of those things, you'll see why we have additional units at certain stations and why we're still cross-staffed at others.
So let me ask you, the 13, usually the averaging is about 2 calls a day?
That's within their service area, yeah.
Yeah, roughly, well, I asked the question the other day, we can certainly look at that, but many of Station 13's calls each day are to support other stations outside of their first service area,
Right.
or the Gold Creek Station area, or District, or Surfer, Station 77, Station 12, other areas. So this is just us, not running other places. So this is a comparative. The question was asked, Chief, what stations are the busiest, and can we look at them in order? And this is what this is supposed to represent for us.
And this is calls that happen within their station service area too. This is not a reflection of how many calls those stations go on in a day. This is looking at, so in CAD, we assign station service areas for each station. What this is looking at is the number of calls that happen within that station service area. It doesn't say how many calls that station actually goes on.
Oh, so they don't get as much sleep as I thought they did.
No, because I would say station 13 backs up station 12 on a very routine basis. If station 12 is out of service, station 13 will go back them up. And so this is the station service area and the number of calls that area.
With that, they probably wear out, they wouldn't wear out the recliner.
So eventually, are we gonna have some discussion again about 13 and 77?
I'm going to defer to Chief Hovis on that one.
Just a point, with Mill Creek coming online, 13 will be the closest one to help out with all the Mill Creek calls, correct?
On the north side, so station 12, station 13, station 21, and station 22, to include station 11. So I can't remember which one's the closest. 21 and 22 on the south side and the central of the city, 13 and 12 kind of on the northeast part of the city. I'm looking at
Station 21 Martha Lake down the hill, Station 11 off of Dumas, depending on where it is, Station 13 heading westbound, or 12's down 35th, or Station 72 in Surfer. It really just depends who's available closest to you. So one of the discussions that we had with the city of Mill Creek is looking down, that we had 5 stations right around them that were servicing them, and 76 servicing us, which I would refer to Mr. Todd on considerations or those sort of thoughts, but that was an early talk, because all of our areas are interconnected, and they all have automatic gate. That's a good question. It really just depends on what address they're calling from.
Gotcha, so those stations could see their local call volume go up, or however.
Someone makes a loud noise at near in Mill Creek, near Station 76 on the border, it might be heard by someone that lives in Station 21's area through a hillside sort of a thing. All the calls, it just depends on who goes closest.
Is there the next screen gonna show calls per day that includes all of them?
I can tell you, so here's three tidbits that go along with this is Station 10, Station 11, Station 15 service area makes up 40% of the total call volume within the RFA. We average 89 calls a day in the RFA. We average 89, and then we also average about 40 transports a day.
So Station 13, you include out of their service area. How many times do they go out a day?
We'll have a full report for you commissioners at the end of the year, breakdown by each station and all.
It's a lot more than.
It is considerably more.
This is just kind of topical. We'll have that for you.
So here's a breakdown of our call demand for the first 3 quarters of 2022. If you look, our EMS, this is based on dispatch, is 84%. And you can see fire, other calls, structure fires, we had 193 year to date. And this is just a breakdown of 2022. And then if you look historically, and you can look over the last 5 years, and the red's BLS, and the next largest block is ALS, and you can see our ALS call demand's been fairly consistent. And we've been pretty consistent across the board with regards to our percentages. Average calls by hour of the day, we look at this. Part of the reason we have peak activity units, you can see our demand times start escalating. Right now, the 11th hour is our highest call demand, and you can see how it trickles down as it goes later in the evening.
Chief, what kind of calls is that? I would imagine that I would have seen traffic accidents early on I-5 or something along those lines during the commute period that 11 to 1500 or so. Is that medical? Just a medical speed?
I would say with 85% of our call demand being EMS, it's EMS driven. I want to say the last I looked, we were 18 or 1900 motor vehicle collisions a year. Okay. And so when you look at 30,000, I mean, it doesn't impact. And I would say that, some of those are early morning calls during major commute, but everybody's bumper to bumper traffic during some of those times where they're not going fast enough to get direct. It actually requires us to respond also, right? So some of that's, we can actually get down into the weeds with that and say when those calls happen, but it's predominantly EMS driven.
Chief Eastman?
Yeah.
On that slide, the slowest part of the day appears to be about midnight to 7 a.m., maybe midnight to 8 a.m., depending. That appears to be consistent, because we've had this chart over many years. That appears to be consistent with my memory of the past. That's the slow time of the day. Is my observation still correct?
Yeah, I think the only thing that you'll look at is when we first started doing this, because our call demand was less, you saw in 10, 11, 12, and midnight have less call volume because we ran less calls. So now what you're seeing is what used to be very little, we're just busier, so you're seeing, instead of being 2 calls at those hours, you're now seeing 4 as a result of just the size, we're bigger and we're running more calls. But the line you see is what we've been seeing for as long as we've been showing the trend. And the other thing is, we didn't show you day of the week, but day of the week, we're pretty consistent across the board. We don't have like a lot of places, Saturday and Sundays tend to be low. We're not. We tend to be pretty consistent by day of the week too. And then here's the one that really means something as far as response data goes. And I guess I want to say, year to date, historically, how the RFA has looked at response times is the time dispatch receives the call to the first unit arriving on all our priority responses. Currently, at the 90%, we are at 9 minutes. If you look at 21, 20, 19, and 18, we were greater than 9:38. Obviously, 2020 was high because of the way we were dispatching as a result of COVID. That's significant, and a lot of that reduction in total response time has to do with dispatch. We're now starting to measure the call processing time at dispatch. And we measure it based on the call processing time is the first unit dispatched. The reason we do that is the first unit dispatch isn't always the first unit arriving. So we measure that very specifically. And if you look, dispatch is cut better than 30 seconds from their dispatch time in 2022. And I look at Chief Ovis and I look at, Commissioner Chan or Commissioner Daniels that sit with 911. 30 seconds is very significant. And I'm not exactly sure what 911 did to expedite their process, but they've done something that has reduced our response time overall by 30 seconds.
New equipment?
I honestly, I don't know.
In brief, it's an air traffic controller model to process calls more quickly, to figure out what's your emergency, where you're at, where you're calling from, get somebody on the road for them to work towards an accreditation model.
Well, it
What it comes
works.
down to.
It works.
And really good, hard, dedicated work by their staff. And where I started with this is talking about the Alpha Bravo or the determinant codes. And what can hopefully make them even more efficient is this takes a lot of time to get all of the information. It can take 3 minutes or more. You can lose cell phone service. There's a lot of things, but they're getting somebody going. But it takes a lot more questions to figure out exactly what is going on and what other resources might be needed for many of our calls, which are primarily our EMS calls, because as Chief Eastman had showed in the graphic here on page, you got your glasses on, I know, for our call types, is when you
61 of 80.
All right, 61 of 80. If you go about calls, and 52, nearly 53% of them are basic life support, and the other 31.2% are advanced life support. That doesn't come automatically. That comes through a series of questions. What's happening with your patient, right? So those streamlined questions that they're going to be able to filter down even more efficiently to the national standard. When I say this, everyone's going to this. All fire agencies in Snohomish County are going to this determinant code. This isn't anybody gets to pick or choose, it's everybody. That's going to help us. And when Director Mills says, and Commissioner Chan, this is old news for you because I know they've been talking about this since before SNOCOM and snowpack merged. This is actualizing those radios that are in service now. having the both dispatches together to have one point of contact for everybody in our county. And also getting, you guys remember what New World is? This is actually getting the dispatch system that's nationally recognized, implemented here in Snohomish County, which will even, I think, improve service to all of the communities within Snohomish County, whatever the 21 different fire agencies might serve them. It's good stuff. So let's keep rolling through this if we need to. This is almost to the last slide. So this is really important about what Chief talked about. And really important to think about that we are busier. When he said 3,000 more calls, we're looking at about a 10% increase. Those wheel turns, we're sending a lot of wheel turns on calls that hopefully we can send the right ones or more accurately in the future, and also have less oversends that Commissioner Barahoff talked about too. So it's good stuff. We've never had the ability to maybe do something differently like this, and we haven't until now, which is great. So Commissioner Chan, I see your hands up, and I'm not the chair, but we're all going to pause here because I know this is something that you request to be brought back to the chair, and we presented the additional data that we requested, and that's we'll go from there. Commissioner Chan, you're on mute.
I'm so excited. So I went to the headquarters today, just print out this beautiful data. I hope they are true, but also is wonderful. I think I mentioned many times, there's two things we are responsible: response time and our budget. Okay. Now let me clarify if I'm understanding. I still remember when I first started, you guys have to wait until the computer print out to tear off the computer and do it. Now can I understand that? The dispatch time is sometimes the turnout time's already starting, right? You hear the thing and you don't stop until the whole 1 minute too, and then you do the turnout time. Is that correct?
So what we're measuring is, this is from the dispatch time. So the red is from when dispatch receives the call till they actually dispatch the first unit. So at the 90%, so 90% of the time, that's 1 minute, 22 seconds or less.
Okay, so but up to that, the dispatcher continue to communicate with the crew?
Well, so then the first unit's dispatched. The dispatcher continues to ask questions to affirm, what kind of call it is, give it a determinant code within the new Pro QA, and then they can, send more units or different units depending on what the final disposition of the call is.
Right. So,
but that happens after we already have a unit going based on how we're
right. The wheel is turning already, right? So I remember we have a lot of turnout time that we have problem with the mapping. Even when we build a new station, we want to make sure the things go. So how is that turnout time? It seems to me pretty consistent. So on the turnout time, I thought at one time we said 2 minutes is the standard. Are we changing the standard now? Or sometimes I see, yeah.
Our current standard in 1756 is 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Right, 2 minutes, 15 seconds.
If you remember all the conversations we've had,
yes.
we rarely meet that at the 90% mark. If you remember the first phase of the capital facilities plan that we did a turnout time study and did it at each individual fire station to measure what it is, and from an organizational perspective, it's 2:39. Now I know John has worked with his crews, and we have crews that are very conscientious of it, and do very, very well with turnout times compared to what we used to be. And the thing to remember about turnout times is this is all our resources that go on priority responses. So unlike the dispatch time, you're looking at the first unit dispatched. When we look at turnout times, we're looking at every single resource. It's wheel turns, right? So it's every single resource that's turning out for a priority response. So in our case, it's if we have 60,000 wheel turns, it's probably 55,000 of those is what we're measuring turnout times on. So it's a large number, and it's all our resources that go that are primary responders.
But I know that even at night, the turnout times is be low because people got to get out, wake up and a little bit. Has that been improving?
I'm gonna look at John because I know he's worked with his folks. I would say if you look at 2019, 20, 21, we were 2 minutes and 39 seconds or better. In 2022, we're looking at 2:45, a little bit longer than we have been. But I also know that the current situation we're in, where we have more scenes of violence, I know that crews are using the body armor more frequently before they go on calls. That adds to some of that. So there's other things that I haven't looked at to analyze, how much higher percentage that is. But when you look at 90%, that's the majority of the calls that fit in that bucket. So if we have an uptick of a certain call type, that will impact our 90% numbers. And I know it's happening more frequently because I hear it when I'm listening to the radio. John may have more information regarding that, but I know it's on the rise. And I think if people look at the news, it's happening more frequently. And you've given the crews the protection, and they're using it. And sometimes that just slows them down a little bit when they have to put that extra protection on. So,
well, at one time we were really concerned about that. Also, suppose to publicate it to all stations so they know other stations doing, and even Commissioner Shaw even suggesting some kind of competitions and all that. Are we still?
They still have the real-time data, the first watch information. They still have it, and they still look at it. And I know Chief Chalfant looks at it, and I know the BCs do. So that's still there, it hasn't changed, and it's still available. I would like to talk about the two other pieces of data that's on here that you don't historically get. We looked at drive time, so you've got the travel time, which is the time the first unit took to get to the scene. One of the things that I'd like you to see is it's really consistent over the last 5 years. And I will say on the sidebar, we looked at travel times within the CAD data over time of day, and it surprised me a little bit, is that we're fairly consistent. I want to say the worst travel time for us, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the 90% drive time was only 30 seconds greater than what we're normal. So I was a little bit shocked at that. So we're doing some more analysis on that and see what that tells us.
Well,
one thing that
go ahead. Well, the one concern, all the other time we control, but travel time we cannot control because of traffic and all that stuff, right? So that's my concern on the light rail coming in. That number is going to go up.
Well, you know what, Commissioner Chan, we thought that number would be going up over the last 5 years too, and I'm surprised to say that it actually has not, to the extent that we thought it was going to go up at the 90%. I think we watch it very, very closely because we think the same thing, and I suspect it will go up as things get more dense. But right now, it's been pretty steady over the last 5 years.
Okay.
The one piece of data that we historically have not given the board, that we're going to give moving forward, is the dispatch to arrival. Most agencies in the state don't measure from time dispatch receives the call till the first unit arrives. We do that because that's what Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that's the time they wait for us to get there. Most agencies look from dispatch to arrival.
And so I really want to emphasize what Chief Eastman just said, is we have historically done that back to the days where we had 2 dispatch agencies, back to the days of District 1 and 11, serving Mrs. Smith and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But we don't control dispatch. We have one dispatch. We're one of a number of stakeholders and have a spot on the large fire agency portion of that. We vote on a portion of their budget, but we can't control that. We're seeing that down. We're a stakeholder and can have those comments, but it's very important for us to measure when we actually get notified until when we arrive, because that's the portions that we can control. Please continue.
So with that said.
Yeah, just,
Go ahead.
just looking at that, there, the only thing that changes is dispatch. As, I don't know why we're talking about it so long. Pretty obvious.
Part of it just because we haven't done it
Past my
before.
bedtime.
Yeah. So you see dispatch to arrival, you're now gonna see it, and that's how most people measure. So if you look at other people's response times and look at our dispatch to arrival, it's a good comparison, and I would surmise we do better than most agencies around us. So, and we've been consistent with dispatch to arrival.
What you were characterizing before as far as maybe increase in crew getting onto the rigs is really addressing PPE, whether it's been COVID, whether it's been body armor or style call, and you were adjusting appropriately. So, and Commissioner Chan, you had asked a question about call time. If once they called 911 and the unit was dispatched, if they stayed on the phone. I recently learned as a trip to 911 that there are two types of people. There's a call taker and then somebody who's on the radio simultaneously with the units and leading them in. So they're never abandoned until such time that the units arrive on scene, take control, and it's the handoff, as far as I understand.
Well, I personally feel that because my brother situation, I call. No, this is really good data, and we haven't seen that for a long time. I wish we can really see it every quarter from now on, so that we can really respond. We can use more resources to respond time. And statistics like that, okay, you got Mrs. Smith within 90%. I hope Mr. Chan is not that 10% that's outside of the 90%. All right, so.
Yeah, so on that note, Commissioner Chan, appreciate it, and we'll be able to look at that on a daily basis, so the dashboard, so the commission can look at that. Okay, this was the ask on the bring back. We can definitely have it for the public too on the quarterly basis, but I want to get to why this we talked about before.
No, but yeah, but I think quarter, so we can ask questions together and study this. All right, every quarter would be great.
I just wanted to make sure that we satisfied the ask to bring this back, but here, back to page 60, this was what was originally talked about. And Commissioner Chan, I know you've mentioned, because we've had legacy in District 1 in the RFA, a medic at each station. And we looked at, so for example, a station 13, 22, 23, 12, that if you go back to that, the call volumes are pretty low, but 40% of our calls are coming out of station 10, station 11, and 15's area. And Chief Isaac Taylor had mentioned with Station 76, we got an opportunity to do some different things, which is potentially go to a hybrid-like system where we have opportunities to have two medics working together, maybe a junior medic or a senior medic, to actually have some incidents where we could stop the clock, have an ALS response be responded to in these busy areas, and not have other stations, like you mentioned, coming to have those wheel turns. So a hybrid-like system. And that was the ask to bring back. I don't know how much, if any, time we need to spend more on this, because we had the presentation before. We just want to satisfy the ask, and we can talk about this later. So open, we don't have anything else from staff. Thank you.
I have one request. As a Power BI report writer myself, when you do the reports and things that are over 1,000, can you use a comma separator? Thank you.
Look forward to bringing back Jennifer Pardee, as Chief Eastman mentioned. That's our data person now that the board has authorized in a mid-year budget adjustment last year to talk more about data. We're looking forward to updating you soon.
So Chief, I've got a question
Yes,
for
sir.
you about this. So are you talking about changing from our current or most recent current system where we have a paramedic at each station to what we in the past have called a tiered model of regional stations with two paramedic units and no paramedic at some regional fire station? Is that what you're talking about, or what?
Yes, yeah, I'm trying to cut to the chase exactly on that, because I know Commissioner Kenny you weren't there, and that was part of the ask. And the presentation that was given previously is a hybrid mix of that to strategically place some two-person medic units along with the ability to have some BLS units and also some strategically placed other units with our extra paramedics when they are around to have a response or capacity of paramedics commensurate to the demands in those areas. So instead of just having a medic at each station, even if its call volume is on the lower end, and the other stations have the same amount, one medic or station, other people, having it deployed with a commensurate amount of resources, get to something with speed and the right amount of weight, which ties in with this new ability here to have these kind of calls separated. That's a huge, goes back many, many years, 25 plus years, a lot of time on the board. And I think Commissioner Chan had mentioned it'd be good to bring it back. And I think it's more than we can get in this meeting at this time, but staff would be willing to answer any questions individually to commissioners to talk about that, get into more details on the maps, and have everyone best understand this, because yes, that's what I'm saying, not exactly like everybody else may do, but what we think is best based on data driven and hoping to even improve the outcomes of the communities we serve. That is what I'm saying.
Well, that's an important change because we have sold ourselves to the public for 2 decades at least, saying we have a paramedic at each station close to you, Mrs. Smith, when you call 911 for your most serious events, your ALS events, you need a paramedic,
Right.
We've got one close to you. That's how we've staffed, that's how we've sold to the public, why they need to increase taxes so we can have this huge array of paramedics. And we have resisted moving to the tiered model in the past. And so this change is different and different than we've sold ourselves in the past. We might want to have some more conversation about it to make sure we're all on the same page about what we're doing, because how we respond for 83% of our calls, it's kind of important.
Definitely, and I think how we do it now is different than anybody else is doing it. It's been a good way to do it, but as the 5 agencies have come together, I'm gonna pull out a little bit of Commissioner Metter out of my pocket here and say, we did it one way before, we were all separate, now we're together. We're saying now it's 25 years later, it's time to think about how to do it now, a little bit differently. Not saying anything was bad before, not saying we didn't have great success with that and how the communities we serve have enjoyed that, but now I wouldn't say we needed some other resources of a certain specialty type or people at every station too. We're saying something in between. The staff's done a lot of work on this. We've looked at data and other things. We think there's an opportunity.
There's something very obvious, very apparent to me, and that is we'd save a lot of money and time if we move Mrs. Smith into the fire station itself.
Or we could get there quicker. Yeah, all right, well, thank you. Staff has nothing else.
I did have one last comment on the data as to the call times reduction. That's actually truly revolutionary. And I'd be happy to talk at length about why that's so, but that's amazing. And it's amazing that it's a technological solution, because we have talked for 20 years at this board about spending tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to bring that down by 30 seconds, by a minute. And now it drops, all because Snow 911 changes its process or software or what have you. It's really interesting that a technological solution made that change.
I've got to capitalize on what you said because of that. Now that gives us an opportunity as they get a wheel turning to continue to use that 30 seconds and how far that's come down to ask those additional questions to get, you need another engine? Is this a fire? You need a ladder truck? Or is that an ALS response for the 31.2% that we're dispatched to? Not necessarily what it ends up being. Or we get somebody there's turning and now you're talking, no, somebody's not breathing. Now we can click it. We couldn't have done this back when Chief MacArthur or any chief before District 111 merged, any of our agencies, we couldn't have done it. Now, because of that, this is that opportunity that we talked about before that we now have an opportunity for big discussion. So thank you.
Motorcycle paramedic.
Helicopter. Oh, sorry.
Drone.
All right, thank you. We'll go into new business. Veterans Day recognition resolution of Chief Hovis, PIO Hines, and myself.
Oh, I almost wore out my voice, commissioners, but page 65 is in our packet. We talked about this last year and the commission approved to recognize our veterans that have served in any of our branches of the armed service or other support or other merchant marine, lots of different people out there. There's a number of veterans in our communities. As our 5 agencies have come together, we don't always know who was a veteran because of how we track data, but I know that we have added a number of veterans to our workforce since the RFA was formed. Liaison Todd is with us. We talked last meeting about the Veterans Day Parade in Mill Creek. We're going to have the privilege to participate in. So staff would ask the commission to consider page 65, the agenda bill and the adjoining resolution consistent with last year, proclaiming November 11, 2022 as Veteran Days to set aside and pay tribute and remember the men and women who have served with valor and sacrifice to protect our nation's freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Chair would like to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Commissioner Chan, is that a second?
Yeah,
Thank you. So moved and
I was
seconded.
to read off the reservation number and all that stuff.
There is no resolution number. Oh, there is?
Yeah, 11082-022-18. And I just want to comment that I think that's a good resolution and really owe everything to all the veterans here.
Further discussion? Not appearing, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Opposed say nay. All right, resolution passes. Going to the interlocal agreement between the City of Linwood and South County Fire, DC Eastman, and Chief Hovis.
I will take this one too, because I think we can speedily talk about this because this is for discussion only. Originally, this was a work session. It is a special meeting. Page 67, you will find an agenda bill which highlights that the interlocal agreement between the City of Linwood and South County Fire for fleet maintenance services has been updated. It's been proposed by the city. This is going to be considered by the City of Linwood's council as well, and when approved, will be forwarded us with Mayor Frizzell's signature. The discussion items list those changes that are on the discussion. The ILA duration, Article 3 for payment, Article 6 for authority. Fiscal impacts have already been calculated as proposed into our proposed budget. CFO Bothwell has reviewed that. The legal review has also been conducted. This is for discussion only and can be brought back under unfinished business for board action when appropriate. And if the budget is approved, we can take care of it afterwards too. This takes two signatories. Previously, it was signed by the chair, which now has been updated to the current chair, and the previous mayor signed it, has been updated to Mayor Frizzell as well. Staff has no other comments unless I missed anything, Chief Eastman.
So it's important to note it's a $2 per hour reduction, a $4 an hour overtime reduction. So it's an actual reduced hourly rate of $2 per hour. And then we were required to provide a truck for them to move the apparatus around, and we no longer have that obligation. So this ILA benefits us greatly on both the fact that we don't have to give them a fleet vehicle and the hourly rate is $2 less.
So as noted on page 65 on the agenda bill, staff, this is your commission purview to approve, of course, but it's good stuff. So that's the last other item.
Commissioner Chan, you have a hand up?
Anything?
yeah, I do have a question. I think a couple of years ago, we talked about the capacity. Does Linwood have the capacity to continue when we're increasing more vehicle and all that stuff? Has that had the discussion? Are they willing to expand their operations and all that? And how long they're going to do it?
They're going to do it, I think, as long as we meet their expectations and they meet ours and we pay them. If we sign this through 2024, Commissioner Chan, that's part of their considerations, part of the reduction in the hourly and their ability to not have to have us go back and forth is Lauren Angiano and the team down there have gotten up to staffing. So having more people for them creates some efficiencies. If the RFA continues to grow
and we would add other fleet or apparatus, or the city of Linwood outgrows us, we'll have to have that discussion at some time. But what this does for now is put us into a better position and stabilizes us for the next calendar year and the calendar year thereafter.
Well, I wasn't thinking about us. I just want to make sure they, because at one time they themselves was concerned about that, but that's all resolved, right? Is that what you're saying?
That's not,
Okay.
my understanding is that that is not their current concern from Mr. Franz, the director, or Marcy McQuarrie, or Lauren Angino.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, not seeing any, we'll move into new business. Item C, interlocal agreement between North Regional Fire Authority and South Snohomish County Fire and Rescue for reserve engine. DC Eastman.
I'll take it first as an opener. We're really proud to have the City of Mill Creek voters approve joining our RFA. Part of the conversation about the transfer of providing service for the City of Mill Creek fire station that's there, and also the fleet that's there, the apparatus and the personnel was something we talked about a lot here between staff and commission. Same thing on the Snohomish Regional side, as well as City of Mill Creek Council. As part of the eventual dissolution of the longstanding agreement between the city and Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue, City of Mill Creek was informed that the fire engine that currently sits at Station 76 was not going to come to the city or be made use of by South County Fire. And we understood that to be the case, and that is the case, and that is okay, because we have some other apparatus, and we also have some great partners out there within Snohomish County, which includes North County Regional Fire Authority. And I will turn this over to Chief Eastman about the concept for discussion on a great opportunity until we can bridge the gap with some of the fire engines we've set down for refurbishment, some of the other apparatus asks for infusion that are in the budget to have an engine 76 on a basis right about now for a great deal. Chief Eastman.
So part of, we've had a lot of conversations about apparatus, so I don't want to belabor that. We know that they go from 12 months, we could get one in 12 months when we order it, now it's 24 months. And so we got a little bit behind as a result of supply chain. We got approval mid-year to start sending a couple of our engines down to refurbish down in Henderson. The first one's down there. I don't remember when we anticipate getting back, and then a second one will go. Where we are with fleet, we're just at a spot where if we had something happen to an engine that took it out of service for a really long time, blown engine, got in a wreck, pump issue that needed a major issue that took it out of service for a long time, we need to have a backup plan to have apparatus until we get what's been approved done and in our hands. And North County has a reserve apparatus that they don't use. We've worked collaboratively with North Region over the years, North County. And really what this is they'll let us use their reserve apparatus as we need it. And in return, we can provide some testing and some evaluators for their promotional exams if they have them as an exchange. And then they have a captain that is going to be at the next academy, 23-1. And they're short staff vehicles. And so they're going to borrow, when needed, one of the training divisions, and I'm looking at Chief Wells, Colorado pickups for that person to commute back during the times that they're actually needing to commute back and forth to the academy, in exchange for us to be able to use their engine when we need to use it. So for us, it's good for us, and quite frankly, it's good for North County because of what we bring in expertise in promotional exams, and we have a staff vehicle that they can use. When we're using it, the expense of that vehicle resides on us. We will have it insured, and if we wreck it, we fix it. And if North County is using their equipment, the same resides. So that's really the ILA in a nutshell.
Yeah, this is a
Pierce engine is the best of their reserve fleet. It resides in a fire station which is not currently staffed up Highway 9. Instead of taking a left towards Angels of the Wind, continue north and take a right-hand turn. It doesn't compromise their fleet. This has had legal review to make sure that these in-kind services back and forth don't raise any red flags with gifting of public fund or any of those other matters. So it's a great opportunity. I think we've covered everything. This is only for discussion. This is going before for discussion to the North County Board by Chief Cermak tomorrow night. He will report back to us how his board discussion goes. And with that, that is all staff has on this item. I know we've relayed this because this was a discussion item as we think about transitioning service with City of Mill Creek staff, including Liaison Todd. I defer to the chair and the commission if you'd like to add anything else, but that's all we've got on the side.
Just a quick question on this one. The term for terminating the agreement is 30 days. Do we have enough, runway there if either side decided to say stop, that we could keep going? There wouldn't be a big impact with that short of a.
Yes, we do have enough to make this happen, even if this opportunity wasn't there, to be able to cover this, as Chief Eastman had said, saying, if something bad were to happen and a pump blows up on something, or we have an accident in an intersection where it damages a rig, this gives us extra capacity to be able to do this. You have to have some sort of an opt 30-day out to make, public and commissions and staff know that it's there. They don't intend to exercise that until we would be ready, or vice versa, is what I've talked about with Chief Cermak, Chief Kraske, and our staff here.
Commissioner Farnoff, any question?
And just more of an intellectual question, is for example, the SCBA is interoperable with our current fleet? So if our Air 15 were to be dispatched and this engine would be dispatched, we wouldn't have any gaps.
We're talking about just the rolling stock apparatus. Our SCBAs and those things would be affixed to them. So the answer to that is yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, just something to think about as we talk about the opportunities of our regional air unit. North County has requested that in the past, and they have the capacity. We do for our personnel, our volunteer firefighter support, to fill their models as well.
Commissioner Kenny.
Yes, thank you. It's great to see York County assisting us. They've assisted us in the past. Chief Cermak has personally assisted South County Fire in the past. We've done things for North County in the past, so it's good to see us working together cooperatively. Great to see, and I'm glad they're helping us out.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, on to commissioner comments. Do we have anything? Going once, going twice? All right, I'll go for it.
Oh,
Commissioner
good.
Chan.
Oh, Commissioner Chan, I was gonna go. All right. You're on mute, Commissioner.
Work fast.
I will yield it to Mr. Todd first.
You what?
I yield it to Liaison Todd first.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that I think it's the December 9th meeting. Excuse me, December 6th meeting is the target for the city of Mill Creek to take action on the fire marshal, fire inspection interlocal agreement. And I understand from Chief Eastman that the commissioners will also be looking at the same night. So it's the same agreement that's very similar to the Linwood agreement. Same one we talked about many, many months ago when we were getting involved in this, but we're going through the final vestiges of that now that South County Fire has given Mill Creek a number. Mill Creek's put that in our budget. So we'll have our council targeted to act on that on the 6th of December. So that's in place. I think it lines up with what South County Fire also wants to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Liaison Todd. Commissioner Chan?
Yes, I got a couple of questions because last week I read in the newspaper, over 50% of residents in here is our outage in there. So I do have to ask questions. I mean, before they compare this to 2005 windstorm. So I asked Chief Hobers or any other staff. I know you might not have all the complete information yet, but did our call really increase to help up one, the PUD for the downline was dangerous? And also, do we get into some of the individual houses have tree go down and stuff like that, just in general?
Yeah, Commissioner Chan and Commissioners, we'll be prepared. Next week, we'll have a fire chief report. We'll look over what our 2-week response was. You'll be able to look over that windstorm period and see how busy we were in totality. There were some incidences, where trees hit cars and houses and those sort of items. The crews on that Friday to Saturday transition were very busy. Certain areas of the county got hit more than others, even certain cities or areas within the RFA, depending on where they're at, how close they are to the way the wind was going, or how close they are to the urban base area, that sort of thing. That makes a big difference too on these tall trees that might be falling. So all that being said, the answer is yes, we'll have that in the fire chief's report information for next week.
I have a lead-on question. Was there any need to do additional coordination here versus DEM standing up and offering resources in the county? Did you guys feel the necessity to?
So DEM's duty officer managed most of that with Public Works. It was mostly a Public Works utility event. The ESF4 was not requested. It was predominantly that. And then, as you know, the rain and the flood watch, and there was other things that they were looking at along with that. But they dealt with it with the select people they needed, not a full acquisition.
Yeah, but that's something that I know DEM's talking about and considering when that happens, because some of those events, planned and unplanned, are good to have coordination with. It helps to have that countywide dispatch and those FS, fire signal calls and service calls. Commissioner Rowland, you'd ask what about those abbreviations mean? They kind of come up in queue. Either we have enough personnel to go or not. So we're fortunate to be able to have some good resources, but everyone was very, very busy.
I noticed the city of Everett, if I'm not mistaken, activated their search teams to go out and relieve crews at down trees, down power lines to stand sentry so they could release their crews back into service.
And there was a lot of down lines across, but we didn't have enough crews to do it.
Yeah, and just to kind of maybe capstone that, Commissioner Chan, unless you have more questions, it's important to note that Fire Station 10 at 156th and Highway 99, Fire Station 11 across the street, as well as this headquarters building, had no power until very late overnight on Sunday until Monday. Otherwise, staff were not going to be able to be here and working because there was no power to this building. And we had the training academy that's here ongoing. Fire Station 11 was on generator power until that time, as well as Station 10. You mentioned about half of the population of the county has gotten their power back, but 60,000 people or 80,000 people that PUD was reporting, that included those two stations, two of the three busiest ones we talked about, plus his headquarters, didn't have power. So fortunately, we were able to make some phone calls. Snohomish County PUD did have their EOC stood up. We could call SNOCOM to emphasize that it's a priority to get those two stations and our headquarters back. They were able to reprioritize and get us back up and running, because they do it by how many dwelling units or parcels are on each grid. So everything to the south of us, the commercial area, down in the motel, the taco time, the A&W root beer, everything right there, all had power. But there's only on this area 5 buildings that feed this grid. Over at Station 11, there's 86, which included elementary school, a middle school, and a high school that needed to stand up for power the next day. And for whatever reason, 156th and Highway 99 had a little area from there to about a 148 that didn't have power. So that answer your question.
No, actually, that's my concern. I got confused. I thought we have some kind of emergency generator, and also that I got confused with my own company in Apollo in Bothell, because we're productions manufacturer. We're debating, should we have a generator or some mobile generator? So in the end, we bought mobile generator. I think that's something we look at, because without power, we cannot function. Yeah.
So if we wanted it here.
Yeah, that's if you didn't hear, Commissioner Farnoff asked, can that be a resource that we can order here? And it can be. I know commissioners, you'd approved adding a generator to this building. We talked about putting it on a skid or wheels. We need a
Yes.
85.
Yeah, we have discussion. Okay. Yeah, but I think it's more like that. Yeah. So I think it's more and more like that. I think we need to prepare as an emergency service. We are in the business of preparedness, right? We prepare to medical, we prepare for fire. We should prepare also for windstorm. So I know that when you in the July 4th, you have this incident set up and upstaffing. So in the future, when you have a forecasting coming in, should we have this kind of same type of thing we deal with July 4th?
You know, I think when we know something's gonna happen, that's a long duration, definitely. For an incident action plan, our crews and battalions handled that well. I don't know of another fire agency that did anything like that. Really what needs to happen is that Snohomish County PUD that covers our whole county talks to DEM and the ESF functions. I'm not gonna go, we're late, so I'm not gonna define the abbreviations, but all the things that we talked about, yes, we need to be prepared for that. The main thing is the power was on, everybody responded. Generator was down here, our 2 stations that we talked about, they're on generator power, that's good to be able to do that. I don't think we need an IEP, but when a wind advisory becomes a wind warning, or a winter storm advisory becomes a warning, that's when our ops crews and everyone else, if we can upstaff when possible, be more prepared, that's great. But this is just another windstorm for us because I guess for all of our crews, we've kind of been through this before. Fortunately, no loss of life, and everything is still made okay.
Well, I'm waiting for your report to see what we need to do, but that's in my current thought right now. All right, thank you.
Thank you, and I hear what you're saying. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. I just have a couple of things. First, I want to say thank you to the veterans for their service. The purpose of our special meeting tonight was to pass a resolution, otherwise it would have been a workshop. Also, thanks for touching on the power outage. Thank you, Still 911 for their efforts. Friday is the Mill Creek Parade. I believe that we are supposed to let PIO Leslie Hines know whether or not us commissioners are looking to attend. I believe the parade starts at 11 a.m. there at the Mill Creek Town Center. And where is the staging, Liaison Todd? Do you happen to know the location of the staging? Oh, Leslie's there.
I will send you, it sits at LA Fitness, and I believe Liaison Todd is the staging manager there.
Air traffic control sounds good.
Yeah.
So what time we should be there?
By 10:15.
10:15, okay.
And I just found out today, our apparatus will actually be staged on, I'll send you a map, but they're going to be staged on Main Street, right at the entrance to the LA Fitness, just north of the LA Fitness. But I will send you a map. For anybody who's going, please let me know and I'll send you a map.
That's my gym, so I do my yoga and then come out. Right.
All right. Thank you. And then last week I attended a luncheon for Dawson's Place. It's a child advocacy center, and I see that there could be some good partnerships between the RFA and them. In short, it's Seth Dawson put it together, and he's a former Snohomish County prosecutor, and he created a centralized location for children who have been victims of sex crimes. And so what you have there is you have a collection of law enforcement people that are in charge to deal with sex crimes, as well as the court system. So you have prosecutors, you also have social workers from the hospital, and then I know I'm missing something else. So I think that that's a good thing for us to partner up on. Then today I went and took a look at the tiller truck at Station 10. That is a beautiful apparatus. It is 60 feet long, and the ladder truck is 45 feet long, and the paramedics about 15.
We're gonna bring up the commissioners. I don't know if fire chief reports, but I do know that the new ladder is at Station 10. So got the picture of it here. You'll see this again in the fire chief report for next week.
And then lastly, today was time to vote, so hopefully everybody got their ballots in by 8 o'clock. And with that, we will move into executive session for the next, we'll start off with 20 minutes.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, sorry, pursuant to review the performance of a public employee, RCW 42.30.110 sub 1 sub G.
All right, thanks staff, thanks.
The executive session has been extended by 20 minutes. The executive session has been extended by 15 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 10 minutes. The the special meeting was called back to order at 11:16 p.m. and without objection, the special meeting has been adjourned.